Who will pick up a big win between the Cincinnati Bengals and Philadelphia Eagles, and which NFC team will come out on top between the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers? The Ultimate NFL Pregame Show starts now.
It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Every team, every game, every angle. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network going head-to-head on every matchup. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Unprecedented insight, unrivaled passion, and unsurpassed knowledge. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. The Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Week 8 in the NFL is officially here, and we've got everything you need to know heading into the weekend from the local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher, and we're going to be taking you through everything that you need to know leading up to these games, from key storylines, big predictions, keys to victory, and so much more, from the help of our experts across our network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So from the primetime game of 49ers, and you got Cowboys in that, to the big 425 matchup in Las Vegas, to the interesting 1 p.m. game between the Philadephia Eagles and Cincinnati Bengals. We're going game by game to make you the most informed fan for game day. So let's start with a look at the 1 p.m. slate of games, and kicking us off this week is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals. Both teams need a win. So Lou DiBiase of Locked On Eagles and Jake Lisco and James Rapine of Locked On Bengals take it through the matchup and what you need to know heading into Sunday.
As we dive into the biggest matchups between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals in this crossover episode on the Locked On Podcast Network, brought to you by PrizePicks, where you can use the app and promo code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5 with PrizePicks. We will discuss the biggest things that have to go right. And we will start, Louis, with those Philadelphia Eagles. If you could pick 3 things that if they happen, the Eagles win on Sunday, what are the top priorities for that team?
Yeah, I think they have to, and this one's obvious for our viewers and listeners, but they have to start fast. They have to finally, they're the only team in football that hasn't scored a point in the first quarter. And with the talent they have, that's just unbelievably unacceptable. So they need to start faster and build a lead so they can be based on their run attack. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that is this identity, whether people like it or not. They want to be a pass-first team. They're a run-first football team. So they need to build a lead and control time of possession. I'd say number 2, you got to protect Jalen Hurts. Like last week, that game was close early on against the Giants because Fred Johnson, who Bengals fans are familiar with, he was not holding up against Brian Burns. Jalen Hurts was struggling with simulated pressure. They've got to hold up front. You're going to be without 2 starters, likely Mekhi Becton and still Jordan Mailata. So I'd say that's number 2. And then number 3 is contain Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like that battle between those two and Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay, that's just such an important part of this game. The Eagles have been really good this year on defense of not letting big plays happen behind them. That's got to continue. This is a much bigger test, though, than what they're used to so far in 2024.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Quinyon Mitchell against these receivers.
It's a great battle.
Yeah. Going back to pre-draft, I mean, we talked a lot about him, Jake, and obviously the Bengals got Amarius Mims, and that's awesome. You get a right tackle, you do it. But I didn't think he would fall to 18. I was like, small school corner, whatever. He checks every other box. And he fell past 18, obviously. So yeah, when we were talking about it, it's like, yeah, if Quinyon falls. And so the fact that he's off to a great start doesn't surprise me at all. And the way T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are playing, that's going to be a heck of a battle.
And I wonder if they continue to try to exploit the slot matchup there. Not that Cooper DeJean has been bad by any means, but if those guys are holding up on the outside and they're clouding the outside or they're clouding Jamar, which teams do, they're just not giving you one-on-ones with Jamar Chase more than twice a game. And Joe Burrow often finds those in the twice per game, and they usually will bite opposing defenses when they get those opportunities. But beyond that, if those guys do hold up, as you're talking about, that is a key for the Eagles side of things. They are moving Jamar Chase into the slot at the highest rate, I believe, of his career so far this year. We saw T. Higgins score a touchdown last week when they got him into the slot. And so when they identify those opportunities to work those guys in the slot from time to time, I think that'll be interesting. And if they continue to do this reverse wishbone thing they got to last week, where they're putting 3 guys behind the line of scrimmage with Joe Burrow, a couple tight ends and a running back to try to condense the box and open things up for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase from a schematic perspective with those corners that you're talking about, Louis. I think that'll be pretty interesting too.
Yeah, and real quick on that too, the Eagles normally don't shadow, like they don't have a corner just follow a receiver all game. But because Cooper DeJean has inside-out versatility, like he was an outside corner pretty much his entire career at Iowa, I would almost love to be like, hey, if I'm Vic Fangio, Quinyon, you're on Jamar Chase all game. And obviously this team's different because they have 2 stud receivers, but I don't know. I would kind of like that. That's kind of my defensive mindset. They're probably not going to do that, but DeJean does have that versatility, so it provides you some more optionality. So I'm very curious to see what Fangio, because he's been a lot more aggressive, playing more man coverage than he was the first month of the year. I wonder if he goes back to kind of more that conservative approach he had in coverage, at least the first month of the season. So that's going to be a fun chess match.
Well, if they can hold up in man,
yeah,
you can take things away from the Bengals. Like they rely on their receivers being able to beat man, and teams thus are generally afraid to play it. But the Browns, maybe not as much in this most recent week where there was more man than we're used to, but last year would play a lot of man, and then their corners would hold up, and the Bengals offense looked kind of rough in that challenge. But that will be interesting to see what Fangio's approach is. He obviously has he's got some familiarity with this personnel from Cincinnati from a previous matchup, even if it was a few years ago. James, let's talk about the Bengals side of things. When you're thinking about the Bengals' keys to victory, you might echo Louis in some regards, but what are the 3 things that have to go right for the Bengals to win in the whiteout?
A lot of people in Cincinnati are talking about pressure and defense and all of those things, but number 1 is protecting Joe Burrow. Don't let that front. Louis said it earlier in the show, 13 sacks the past 2 weeks. You have to protect Joe Burrow, keep him upright. The Bengals are going to throw the ball. He needs to be able to be upright to throw the ball. Number 2, you certainly want to contain Saquon Barkley, because if you can't contain Saquon Barkley and he's getting those explosive runs, it's going to open up everything else. The deep ball to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith running across the middle or running a deep post, or all of those things that we've seen those guys do at such a high level. And then number 3, this defense has forced big plays. Last week, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, 11 quarterback hits. The Fred Johnson factor is a big one. Take advantage of that, exploit that. And if you're limiting Saquon, then you should be able to get pressure on Jalen Hurts and take advantage of that. So I think those are the 3 things. If you're protecting Joe Burrow, the offense should find enough out there, enough big plays or enough plays to win. And then it's all on the defense to slow Saquon down, eliminate those explosives, and create some big plays to get the ball back in the offense's hands.
Yeah, I would say if there is one matchup that can make or break this game, it really is Fred Johnson against Hendrickson. Like the only reason that game kind of got out of hand was because Brian Burns got hurt. Kellen Moore was not doing a good job of giving Johnson help. Like there weren't a lot of tight ends helping with any sort of chip blocks, running backs. So they got to have a better plan for Hendrickson, or Jalen Hurts. Like he could be in for a long day. That's going to be an interesting matchup to watch.
I think that if Trey goes into game record mode, you said you watched the Kansas City game back in week 2, the Kansas City-Cincinnati game. That was a game that Trey Hendrickson nearly won on his own.
Yeah.
And if he can do that in a game, again, different offensive mentalities, I think, from the Eagles and the Chiefs. But if he gets to pin his ears back, then he can win games on his own. We've seen him do that in Cincinnati. I know he's not the household name of a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt or name your favorite pass rusher, but he has affected the quarterback at roughly that level. And I think that's something that many don't notice. But another matchup that I'll point out, especially if Mekhi Becton does miss this week, he's dealing with a concussion, right?
Yep.
Is BJ Hill on the inside. I know that Landon Dickerson is a player that I really like coming out of the draft a few years ago. Cam Jurgens playing center now, succeeding. Kelsey in there. I don't know that I have a whole lot of faith in those guys in pass blocking situations, especially drop back passing situations. Not that BJ Hill is a world beater in there, but he's been very good the last couple of weeks in terms of creating disruption and doing the job of a professional at defensive tackle, which is something that the Cincinnati Bengals did not have when he was hurt for a few weeks earlier this season. So that's another matchup that I'll call out there. And James, I'm very surprised you didn't mention getting off to a fast start as well. Capitalizing perhaps instead on the Eagles' inability to get off to fast starts with the 0 points in the first quarter, something that we talk about a ton, Louis, on Locked On Bengals, because that game script is just vital so often in NFL games. And the Bengals,
it's all about coaching.
Question.
And I think that's the thing. I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Dan Orlovsky. I was watching somebody say first quarter is all about coaching and the fourth quarter is all about the players. And I really think that's true, at least from Philly's standpoint. It's a direct reflection of just poor game planning throughout the week. So there's just too much talent for both of these teams to start slow. So, I mean, you would think it would open up like guns a-blazing, but that just hasn't been the case.
I think we can all agree at least that we hope the game doesn't end in a tie.
Yes. Yeah. Don't punt with 30 seconds left if you're Nick Sirianni like Doug Peterson did, or whatever the situation was.
Jake and James are great. You can find them over on Locked On Bengals, and you can find Louie over on Locked On Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking of the Bengals, 2 AFC North teams battle it out this weekend between the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns. Baltimore's won 5 straight games, coming off of an impressive win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night. Cleveland, on the other hand, is reeling. They lost to Deshaun Watson for the season, so a new quarterback in Jameis Winston, new play caller as well. Me being the host of Locked On Ravens, I'll take it through the Ravens side, and Jeff Wood of Locked On Browns take it through the Browns side of what each team needs to do to win the game. Welcome back into Locked On Ravens and Locked On Browns here on Crossover Thursday. Kevin Ostreicher and Jeff Lloyd still hanging out with you, talking everything about this Week 8 AFC North matchup. Just a reminder, today's Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Jeff, let's dive into some keys to victory here in this final part of the show. I'll start with the Ravens, and then we'll move over to the Browns. For the Ravens, I think, first of all, just get out to an early lead. Yeah, literally. Early lead. Hey, you know what? If you show up, maybe you just win on them. It's like writing your name on the test, right? Like you just write the name on the test, and then you're good. But, yeah, I think a lead early. Don't let the Browns get momentum. Because, again, I think Jameis Winston is one of those guys where if you give him enough momentum, you're kind of like, oh, who's this guy? You know, it's like the Browns have had success. Especially, you know, I know Joe's a different player. Joe Flacco's a different player than Jameis is. But, you know, it's kind of like the team galvanizing around someone. And Joe was that for them last season. And Jameis is a guy who we know, despite all of his, you know, the funny quotes and craziness that he brings, like he can be a motivator in some different ways than others. So I would say if you're the Ravens, get out to a lead, just stomp all that down. Don't even let that become a thing. So if you go 14-3, 10-0, does Cleveland have the firepower to come back from that? I would bet against it. So, especially with Amari Cooper now in Buffalo, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy, you know, maybe it's more Cedric Tillman or Jamari Thrasher, whoever it is. If Baltimore can establish that lead, especially using the ground game, I think that would be a very strong start for them. I also think the offensive line playing well. This Browns defense, obviously, you mentioned the Myles Garrett stuff, Zadarius Smith and all those players. The offensive line, first couple weeks for Baltimore was pretty bad. Honestly, they were key factors in why Baltimore lost their first 2 games, but they have put it together over these last 5 weeks on this 5-game winning streak. They played really solid football. They lost 3 starters in the offseason, but you have guys like Pasha McCary who stepped in for injury where he's at left guard. You know, Morgan Moses and Kevin Zeitler are gone on the right side. Well, Roger Rosengarten, a rookie, has played really well. Daniel Falele is beginning to find himself at that right guard spot. So if you can stifle that Browns pass rush and you can stifle those guys and make them ineffective, I mean, again, that's great for Lamar Jackson in the offense. And then defensively, obviously, no big plays. Although, as you mentioned, Jeff, how Cleveland plays, you know, there's more likelihood for that actually happening for the Ravens, considering the Browns don't push the ball down the field, that effectively they don't even really try. But you can't let these big plays create themselves. You know, you can't let a screen pass go for 20 yards. You can't let a slant go for 60. You have to contain everything. Baltimore likes to not let those big plays happen anyway. But I think, to me, if you can do that, Baltimore can hit on enough big plays themselves. If Cleveland's not hitting on big plays, that's a really big reason why I think they could win the game. But on the other side, Jeff, for Cleveland, what do they have to do to win the game?
Well, there's the one thing we kind of been talking about this entire episode. There is one thing to understand that your season may be over. There is another thing to go out and play as if your season is over. You can't do it. And look, I think there's a good case that this team is going to show up week in and week out, because it's going to be really difficult to go look in Myles Garrett's face, Nick Chubb's face, Joe Bitonio's face. And if you didn't give 100%, these gentlemen are going to speak to you on it. So show up and, you know, fight, because that's what you still have to do. You get paid to do that. So that is obviously the first most of importance is you got to go out there and act like you're 0-0 and it's week 1. You have no choice. Second one is you have to find some way to have some balance on offense. You're going to have to get something from the running game. You are going to basically throw the kitchen sink. Look, there's nothing in the Browns playbook right now that if you think it can work, should not be used. This team fairly runs jet sweeps. This team doesn't really run very many trick plays. Pierre Strong threw 4 touchdown passes in college. Let him throw a pass. What do you obviously have to lose in a scenario like this? If you think it's something that can fool them and they will not be ready for it, then you go ahead and just do something like that. Defensively, it's always one of the biggest things when you play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. You want to get a lot of pass rush, but it has to be controlled and contained pass rush, because the last thing you want to do is get after him to the point where now you agitated him a little bit and he says that I'm not going to throw it. I don't need to. And Lamar lives for that. It lives to be rushed and then sneak out. And the next thing you know, you thought you had him in the pocket and it went from 3rd and 11 and he reeled off 24 yards. And now you're lining it up on 1st down again. You have to play controlled and contained. And that's going to be the most difficult thing for this team. Mike Hall Jr., never really seen him. Isaiah McGuire has not taken very many reps. So guys who are going to start to play a little bit more for the Browns are going to have to understand that. Then there's also going to be the thing of he's starting to change a little bit. And he knows he doesn't have to do that. And he can use his legs to set up and create passing lanes, which is one of the things that's really, really starting to become intriguing with Lamar as he grows and matures, is he's using as athleticism not to run, to create more downfield. So you have to just play him and give him the respect that he is owed. Back in the day, and Baker said it, and he still gets a little heat for it. It was different back in the day. If you just sat back and made Lamar try to beat you throw for throw, you had the ability to maybe beat him. That's maybe not necessarily the case right now. He's going to beat you either way with his legs, with his arm, and even the Derrick Henry thing. Now, remember, we talked over the summer. The thing I said, look, I have no problem with the move, but it's not like anybody sat here over the years and said, man, if the Ravens could put together a decent running, look, they ran the ball well with Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, certainly Justice Hill, whoever they had, they always ran the ball well. The biggest thing for them going down the stretch is going to be are they using Derrick Henry too much now? Because the thing is, the running game kind of went quiet for them in the offseason. I mean, in the playoffs. So is Derrick going to get too much work that maybe he isn't the same factor in the playoffs? But knowing Baltimore, they'll get a big lead. They'll be able to sit him a little bit, and it'll probably work out for them. But, those are the 3 things. Obviously, nothing to be afraid of on offense. Pull out anything. You need to show up and understand that you still need to fight and battle each and every week. And the other one is just having some new guys play a newer version of Lamar and make sure, you are not setting him up to just absolutely eviscerate you.
Yeah, and for Lamar, I mean, this is the best we've seen of him. But even earlier in his career, we had talked about here in Baltimore about, he has to improve this, that, and the other. And he's matured, like he's grown. Now, the big thing, even early in his career, he would love to, in the pocket as a passer. Like he has been really good at that. He's grown in doing that as well. But we saw kind of glimpses of him taking that lane out and throwing the ball that way. We saw that and we're like, oh, he can do that. And he does it really well. But now we have seen just an improved all across the board Lamar, and coming off an MVP season after what we saw, still a really great player early in his career with a lot with his arm. Like we saw plenty of stuff throwing outside the numbers. We've heard all that, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. Well, he did it all early and he's doing it all now too. But it's just, it's to another level. And to say that after an MVP season is incredible. So when you face off against a team like Cleveland, who, as you mentioned, has nothing to lose, they can go out there, play free. Sometimes that's a dangerous thing for a team. Baltimore sometimes falls into those trap games, right? Sometimes that happens. So to me, Jeff, I still think Baltimore wins this game. I think that it's going to be, I don't necessarily know a score, but probably more than 7 points, I would say. How do you think it's going to go?
Look, I mean, we're talking about a team that hasn't been able to score 20 points this year. And the Ravens could score 20 points in a quarter. Yeah. Look, I hope for better. I think Jameis Winston improves the product. I honestly don't see how Jameis Winston can make the product any worse, to be completely honest with you. But you told me 30-16. I wouldn't be stunned. It just, plus, when you get to 1-6, and I know fans don't want to hear this. If you get to 1-6, you might as well get to 1-16. I mean, what's the point of going, 6-11? What is that doing for anybody at the end of the day? Nobody wants to hear it. They're not going to be happy about it. I don't think they're going to tank. But we're talking about a team that hasn't scored 20 points yet. And now for the rest of the season is going to be quarterback 2 and quarterback 3. Again, I think they can play better, but I'm not sure it's going to be, what it could be. And, as much as I've talked about the offensive line, even if I get the best version of this Cleveland Browns offensive line, I don't think it's going to be a version that is even in comparison of what this offensive line was in 2021 and 22.
Yeah, if I had to do a score, I look on FanDuel, that 9.5 for the Ravens, I'm hammering that. I'm probably saying somewhere along like 33-17. 33-16, something like that, where, again, I think that Jameis Winston is the most dangerous option that Cleveland has right now. And I think in Baltimore, people were like, the fans were licking their chops saying, oh, Deshaun Watson, they're going to be able to play Deshaun Watson because of what happened. I think Jameis provides something different.
It's a wild card. It's also a wild card. You don't have much to go on here.
Right. But I still think, with all that being said, I don't think it's going to be nearly enough, especially with how well this Ravens offense is playing, and hopefully could be maybe a stepstone game for the Ravens on defense. You can find me over on Locked On Ravens. You can find Jeff over on Locked On Browns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NFC South, you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs just lost both of their star receivers, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The Atlanta Falcons will try to take advantage of that. So Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons and James Yarko of Locked On Bucs go through keys to victory, key storylines, and so much more.
Wrapping things up here on a Crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Falcons and Locked On Bucs. And this Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I missed my parlay for Thursday Night Football, and the only leg that I missed, Aaron, was Buccaneers money line. That was it. I hit everything else. Would have been over $1,000 payout, and your Falcons ruined it for me. So what are the 3 things that the Falcons need to do to ruin this Sunday's parlay for me?
Well, first, James, I'll say, if you're the Tom Brady of missing that last leg on the parlay, I'm the Peyton Manning of that. So,
high five.
2 peas in a pod. So the 3 keys to victory for the Atlanta Falcons is, number 1, they got to stop the run. Number 2, they got to win the turnover battle. And number 3, they got to take advantage of matchups. All of these sort of build on the things that we've already been talking about, right? As I said, the wide receiver injuries won't matter if the Bucs can run the football. They were able to rush for over 100 yards against the NFL's best run defense. And they're going up against, I think, a run defense that, depending on what you're looking at, is somewhere in the bottom 10. Against the Atlanta Falcons, somewhere between 23 and 28 or something like that. So if they could do it against the Ravens, they certainly can do it against the Falcons. So the Falcons are going to have to sort of key on that and be able to stop the run. If the Bucs get their run game going, they will be able to then eventually get their passing game going as well on third downs. The other thing with the win the turnover battle, right? The Bucs have given up a bunch of points the last couple of weeks to the Saints and Ravens off of turnovers, especially in the second quarter. We saw Jesse Bates get that critical forced fumble at the end of that fourth quarter in the Bucs game to help, sort of slow down the Bucs and prevent them from running out the clock in that. But we get a lot of Kirk Cousins chaos this season. And he has a turnover in 5 out of the Falcons' 7 games, and the 2 where he didn't in against the Eagles and Panthers, he still put the ball in harm's way in both of those games. It just didn't result in a turnover. And as I said earlier, with Antoine Winfield coming back, if Kirk continues to put the ball in harm's way, I guarantee you, he will take advantage of it. He will find it to be in the right spot, just like Levante David. 2, again, thorns in the side. The Levante David stuff is just like 12 years of this. I'm like, just get out of here, man. Just retire, my guy. But will we get to see a cleaner game from Kirk Cousins? Maybe, but basically we just need him to be cleaner than the Bucs. So if he gets that 1 turnover, then the Falcons need to force 2 turnovers from Baker Mayfield, and we've seen that from Baker Mayfield the last couple of weeks. So the Falcons need to take advantage of that, and then they need to take advantage of the matchups, and that goes to basically attacking the middle of the field on offense, as we've discussed with the Bucs, leaving that part wide open, getting over 300 yards passing from Kirk Cousins in the previous matchup over the middle of the field. I basically, if my game plan, if I'm sitting in on the meeting with Zach Robinson, the Falcons offensive coordinator, I'm saying, let's get DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, involved in this, because I absolutely want to terrorize KJ Britt in this matchup. I want to find him, circle him, get him one-on-one against Bijan Robinson in the open field as much as humanly possible, and absolutely terrorize this man all day long, all night long, come Sunday. So that is, to me, the type of thing that I want to see the Falcons take advantage of in this game.
Yeah, and in that last meeting, the turnover battle was tied. Both teams with one. The Bucs had the fumble. Kirk immediately throws the interception to Levante David, and I think that was kind of the moment, honestly, where it turned in favor of the Falcons, because the Bucs thought they had the game won when Levante got that interception. There was too much time left on the clock, but yeah, you're 100% right. As much as I've criticized KJ Britt and kind of thrown him under the bus, I guess is what I'm looking for, I haven't seen a quarterback attack him as well as Kirk Cousins did. And I lost count of the number of replays where he is just baiting KJ Britt, just moving him wherever he wants to move him with his eyes and then going the complete opposite direction. I don't know what kind of mystical hypnotic power Kirk Cousins has over KJ Britt, but he's able to just maneuver him wherever he wants and then pick apart that middle of the defense. It's going to be a tall task for the Bucs defense. But again, Antoine Winfield Jr. could change some things there. For the Bucs, they have to pressure Kirk Cousins. For the love of God, pressure Kirk Cousins. Defend the middle of the field and then use those running backs. I talked about it on our last crossover that number to hit was 20%. You had to pressure Kirk Cousins on 20% of his dropbacks, and that was where you started to see his numbers drop. The Bucs did not do that the first time around. He had all day to pick apart the Bucs defense. They have to ramp up the pressure. They have to send blitzes. Kalijah Kancey's going to help that. Yaya Diaby has been coming on strong. I believe he has 3 sacks over the last 2 games. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has to win his one-on-one matchups, but you have to get that pressure there or Kirk Cousins is going to pick you apart over the middle of the field. So how are you going to defend the middle of the field this time? Antoine Winfield Jr. He has to be the center fielder. Jordan Whitehead struggled against the Ravens, but overall he's had a really good season, but you're short on players in the secondary. Antoine has to play that center field role where he's reading what Kirk Cousins wants to do. He's reading what's in front of him, and he can react. He can make a play. Maybe he doesn't get there fast enough to get an interception, but he can get there fast enough to get a pass breakup. Things like that. Do not leave it up to KJ Britt to play a zone in the middle of the field, or it's going to be another very long day. And then use those running backs, man. Use Rashad as a receiver and a runner. Use Sean Tucker to wear down this Atlanta defense. He is a bruiser. And then Bucky Irving he's like a fart in a skillet, man. His change of direction is so quick and so smooth that he turns 1-yard losses into 8-yard gains in the blink of an eye. You have to utilize all of these guys, but especially in that second half, if Atlanta's defense has been on the field for a little while, you start hitting them with Sean Tucker and really punish them. He has a very powerful, way that he runs, and he punishes guys that are trying to take him down. That's really what you have to do if you're the Bucs to control this game.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll find out which of these teams, take our advice and execute these keys to victory and come away with a win that will either, potentially seal the NFC South crown for the Atlanta Falcons. Hopefully, again, you can never count the Falcons to not blow a lead in this world. But, this is a must-win game for the Bucs. This is a really important to win game, kind of, but not necessarily their season is over and their playoff hopes are dashed if the Falcons don't come away. And is that a motivating factor for the Bucs to get this win at home going into the season? I didn't necessarily expect the Falcons to sweep the Bucs, but given these injuries, given some of these advantages we're talking about, I feel like the odds have gone up in the last couple of days. But will the Falcons be able to take advantage of it? We'll see on Sunday.
Yeah, and the one last thing is a lot of times we see maybe there's a quarterback change, maybe there's a coaching change. In the Bucs situation, there is a kick to the gut by losing these two leaders of the locker room, leaders in the community, leaders on the field. Maybe that's enough for this team to rally and really do what no one is expecting them to do, and that's going to win over the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll see how Kirktober ends one way or another.
Be sure you're checking out Aaron over on Locked On Falcons and checking out James over on Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next, the New York Jets. Devontae Adams is now officially on that roster, and they will hope to avoid a 2-6 start going up against their AFC East rival in the New England Patriots. So you have John Butchko of Locked On Jets, as well as Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, taking you through the game, what you need to know.
Pats fans and Jets fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots, Locked On Jets, crossing the streams, crossover Thursday style. Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, John Butchko of Locked On Jets. Folks, the New England Patriots are 7-point underdogs at home, according to our friends over at FanDuel. The Jets come into this matchup 2-5, the Pats at 1-6, a 1 p.m. kickoff at Gillette Stadium on Sunday. John, we've gone over the biggest stories in Jets camp, the biggest stories in Patriots camp. But if either team is going to be successful on Sunday, it comes down to the little things, the mechanicals, the logistics on the field that are going to determine the winner and the loser in this one, unless the two teams tie. Hopefully, we'll have a winner at the end of the game. However, the Jets are coming into this game, in your estimation, as needing this win. A 2-6 start to this season probably means a very difficult, maybe even impossible road to the playoffs for the Jets. So there's a lot of motivation here for them to come in and get the victory. If they're going to do that, how do they do it? What are the keys to victory this Sunday for the New York Jets?
Well, Mike, the first thing I'm looking to is the script on the offensive side of the ball. The first, 15 or so plays. It's improved the last 2 weeks. Now, as we've discussed, the Jets have so many stories going on. 2 weeks ago, they changed play callers from Nathaniel Hackett to Todd Downing. And that's not even one of the top 3 stories of the last 2 weeks. It's not even debatable because you fired the coach. You traded for Devontae Adams, and Hassan Reddick ended his holdout. So this is at best the fourth most biggest story on the team the last 2 weeks, which for other teams might be the story of the year. The script has improved, and I've been a skeptic that Downing would make that big of a difference. I'm not sure he's made that big of a difference, but one thing that's definitely improved is the quality of the play calling in the early part of the game, the way the Jets are executing, just the overall creativity. I think the script is especially important in this game because jumping out to an early lead is a big deal for the Jets in this one. I think whenever you're facing a rookie quarterback, you want to put a lot on his plate because even the good rookie quarterbacks have moments where they don't look so good. And when you ask a rookie quarterback to do too much, even a good one, bad things happen. So on the other hand, this Jets, and I know the Patriots haven't been running the ball effectively. This Jets run defense has not been effective at all. And I know, again, the Jets stopped the Patriots pretty well on the ground week 3, but if Patriots get the lead and this Jets defense, needs to start stopping the run, I don't have any faith in them. So I think it's always important to get off to a good start, always important to jump out to an early lead, but Jets jump on the Patriots early. It's tough to see how New England wins. If the Patriots, jump out to a lead early in this game, that's how they possibly pull the upset. Second key, it's nothing the Jets can do except hope, but they need to hope Greg Zuerlein bounces out of this slump that he's in. Greg Zuerlein's been a really solid kicker through his career. He's had a good first couple seasons with the Jets. This year, it's not been working for him. Missed a game-winning field goal attempt against Denver, a couple doinks against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. Last week had a kick blocked from only 35 yards and looked like it was going wide anyway. It happens to good kickers all the time, and it's happening to Greg Zuerlein this year. He's in a slump. You have to hope he comes out of it. Third thing, don't beat yourself. I think that with all due respect to the New England Patriots, most neutral observers would say that the Jets are a more talented team. And I say that even as somebody who thinks that this Jets team is not as talented as it was made out to be. If both teams play their A game, the Jets are probably going to win. The way the Jets lose this game is if they make mistakes. And last week against the Steelers, Jets were in control of the game. They were up 15-6 with a minute, 15 seconds left in the first half. Aaron Rodgers throws an interception that turned the game around. Again, going back to, you want to force a rookie quarterback to do as much as possible. You want to put as much on his plate as possible. If you're turning the ball over, giving him short fields, you're making life easy on him. You don't want to do that. So those are my 3 keys to victory for the Jets. How about you? What do you think the Patriots need to do to win this game?
Well, in a lot of ways, John, I think it's a mirror image of what the Jets need to do. The Patriots came into this game running the ball ineffectively for the last 2 games. They need to make sure to get that running game on track, because what it does is it keeps defenses on their heels, and it allows the Patriots to play from an area of strength, but it also opens up this offense so much for what Alex Van Pelt likes to call. The Patriots are predicated on outside zone, and they love to run that. Ramondre Stevenson is a very good running back at being able to run that style, but it allows Drake to be able to get into his rhythm and then start taking shots in the backfield and then start taking shots downfield through play action. That's what the Patriots would love to do. So they need to be able to try to establish the run early. And in a lot of ways, I think it has to do with play calling as well. It's not just simply looking at what works, but absolutely adjusting to what the other team is doing. That's something the Patriots have not done a whole lot of. So when it comes to the run, yeah, try to establish the run early and get things going. What that's going to do is it's going to allow Drake to be able to utilize the passing game, which right now has been better. And 2 weeks ago, Pats fans would have never thought that that statement was true. But that passing game has been better for the New England Patriots. Conversely, on the defensive side of the ball, the Patriots need to start stopping the run. They have been abysmal at doing so in the last few games, and it's shown on the field. And the Patriots simply cannot get enough traction to be able to get a run stoppage. It's really hard to feel good about this Patriots run defense right now, John. The Jets may come into this game looking at the Patriots as being ripe for the pickings. The Dolphins, the Texans, and the Jaguars all posted rushing totals of 193, 192, and 171 yards respectively. And at that point, you look at what Jacksonville did with the Patriots running the ball on 17 consecutive plays against that run defense in London. The Patriots cannot have another repeat performance like that. So if they are serious about wanting to try to remain competitive in this game, they have no choice but to stop the run. And they need to try to do it early and often, and as much as possible, have that have the middle of that defense play as formidable as possible. It's not going to be easy. They're missing arguably 3 of their best players in the middle, which are Christian Barmore, who is out indefinitely due to blood clots, Juwan Bentley, who is for sure out for the year, and also Jabril Peppers, who has had his off-the-field issues. He won't be in the lineup, and he's one of your best secondary defenders in that backfield, especially when it comes to stopping the run. So not going to be an easy task, but the Patriots have to figure out a way to do it. And then lastly, I think really kind of works hand in hand with both running styles. The Patriots coaches from the top, from Gerard Mayo to Alex Van Pelt to DeMarcus Covington, have done a poor job of adjusting when they need to in games that haven't been doing much of that. We've seen the Patriots get out to hot starts. They did it against the Jaguars, got out to an early 10-0 lead, and then all of a sudden abandoned the passing game when it was working very well, attempted to run, and they were gaining 1 yard or losing 1 yard or losing 4 yards. There weren't the offensive adjustments that were made that were necessary in order to keep the Patriots up and to keep the Jacksonville Jaguars on their heels. On the opposite side of the ball, obviously, if you're ripping off consecutive runs in the teens, your run defense is doing something wrong. Adjustments are not being made on the defensive side of the ball either. So that's inherent upon Gerard Mayo. It's inherent upon the coordinators. You talked a little bit earlier about the jury being out or the early returns on Gerard Mayo. If they continue to play in a way that does not adapt to what this team needs during the game, yeah, then that's going to be another indictment on his coaching style. So again, a lot comes back to the New England Patriots here, but they have to be able to get back to fundamentals, and they have to be able to adjust on the fly. If they're not doing any of those, it's going to be a long afternoon for them in Foxborough on Sunday.
John is great, and so is Mike. You can check them out over at Locked On Jets and Locked On Patriots, respectively, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up in the second part of the show, we will round out the 1 p.m. slate of games, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We have a lot coming up here on this Ultimate NFL pregame show. First, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 100 times your cash. Earn your game all season long on PrizePicks. And I love going on PrizePicks, seeing all they have to offer. They always have something that I'm really interested in over there. And you can now up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for lineups. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds to turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So for the Ravens and Browns game coming up, you can maybe go with Lamar Jackson more on the passing yards, Derrick Henry more on the rushing yards. Those seem like pretty good things to go with on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We are back, our second segment of the Ultimate NFL pregame show. Kevin Ostreicher still here with you, taking you through all of the action in Week 8 of the NFL season. We'll round out the 1 p.m. games here, starting off with Arizona Cardinals and Miami Dolphins. The big storyline in this game is Tua Tagovailoa, but don't let me tell you about it. Let Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals and Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins take you through it.
So let's get into keys to victory, Alex. I want to do 3 apiece, and be a horrible host if I didn't let you go first. So what are the keys to victory for the Cardinals against the Dolphins?
Number one, first and foremost, the offense needs to hum. This is a Kyler Murray needs to be special moment. I've gotten a lot of crap for saying that all Kyler Murray needs to do this year is be an elevated game manager who makes special plays when necessary. And that's what he did against the Chargers. 45-yard touchdown run. He let him down on the game-winning drive to win the game at the end of the game. He needs to be better. He needs to be better. He needs to be more effective, and he needs to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved. That's not a key to victory for me, getting Marvin Harrison Jr. involved. This offense would be fine without Marvin Harrison Jr. The fact that they have him is a bonus. And I think that that's something that just needs to be mentioned because, that's where we're at, and it's going to take him a little time to get acclimated. But Kyler Murray starts and ends with him. Number 2, it's a 1A really, is they have to have some sort of semblance of pass rush. Now, whether this is Max Melton off the edge, whether this is Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson with safety blitz packages, the Cardinals need to get into Tua's kitchen. It doesn't need to be with sack totals. It's got to be pressures. It's got to get him off schedule, because if he doesn't get off schedule, Tyreek Hill is going to remind everybody why he's probably the best receiver on the planet. And then if you're not reminded by that, Jalen Waddle is going to remind you why he's one of the fastest wide receivers in the game, great hands, and can break up a 75-yarder at any moment. And then the third one with that is they cannot give up the big play. Let Devon Achane, let Raheem Mostert get their 4 or 5 yards a carry at most, but keep everything in front of you. The Cardinals defense is not equipped to give up chunk plays for touchdowns that puts the offense on their heels, 3 and out, defense back on the field. That is a nightmare scenario for the Cardinals. So those 3, Kyler Murray needs to be elite. The pass rush needs to get home at least once or twice to rattle Tua a little bit. And then you can't give up the big play to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle specifically.
Yeah. For me in Miami, it's as simple as, number 1, Tua Tagovailoa has to play. If Tua doesn't play, I mean, they just picked CJ Beathard up as another because Tyler Huntley, who's started the last 3 games, he's now hurt. And Skylar Thompson started against Seattle, and he got hurt in the second half of that game. So you just kind of have this merry-go-round that's exhausting. Yeah. The Dolphins did this when these two teams or when they had to play without Tua in 2022 as well, where like you would a stretch of like 4 straight times where the same quarterback that started the game did not finish the game. So if you can get Tua Tagovailoa back, get him out of concussion protocol, it gives you a functional passing offense, which they have not had, and it's been frankly inexcusable to still have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the ability to run the football. I know Jonnu Smith the past 2 weeks has really emerged. To have all of that happening and to average like 145 passing yards a game is just awful. And that's where they've been. So Tua has played 7 quarters, less than 7 quarters, and he still has more than 100 passing yards than any of the other quarterbacks that have played. And there's been 3 of them thus far this season. And it's week 8. So Tua has to play. That's the first thing. I think the next thing for me, aside of finishing with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill not finishing for combined 3 touches, which is what they did against the Colts, but that goes into Tua playing. I'd love to see more of Jalen Wright, the 4th-round rookie running back who did a really nice job against the Colts or against the Patriots and then came out after the bye, coming out of the bye with Devon Achane back. And Jalen Wright got 6 snaps, not 6 touches, 6 snaps. And Wright has the explosiveness of Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, but he's a bigger player. And like when Miami has had success, especially against the Colts, they were getting dirty yards. They were running between the tackles a little bit more as compared to being the finesse outside zone, get out on the edge. They've really struggled with their wide receivers blocking out on the perimeter to get them the edge in those plays. So I would love to see a more physical runner take some of that workload so that you can turn as the game goes on. 4-yard gains can become 7-yard gains. And Jalen Wright's been really close to popping a couple runs for explosive runs too. So that's one big thing for me. And then on defense, I would say, especially with Kyler and the athleticism that he has, the Dolphins have had a lot of really impactful and effective fire zone blitzes and DBs coming out of the nickel, kind of getting free runs at the quarterback. That's been more over the last 2 weeks, Jalen Ramsey. I would love to see Ramsey have a prominent role in that regard in this game as well. I think he had five pass rush reps in this past game, and he had pressures on like 3 of them. So it's like that's been something that's worked for them, and the Dolphins' edge group is really banged up. Doesn't sound like Bradley Chubb's coming back off of PUP for this game and having his practice window open. So they'll be without him for another week. They should have Emmanuel Ogbah back, but those DB fire zone pressures being something where you want to play zone and be able to have eyes on the quarterback anyway because he has the threat to run. So take advantage of that, try to manipulate the numbers and the protection to get a free runner and have it be an athletic player that can actually finish that rep with a chance to get Kyler on the ground.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's all. I'm terrified. I mean, the Cardinals have shown that they can win ugly because they've won ugly, which is something that teams that are growing can't usually do. It's usually you lose by a little. It's hard to win by a little. And I think that that's what the Cardinals have shown in their 2 wins, in their last 2 wins this year, that they can do. So going on the road, hopefully cramps aren't an issue with the Cardinals. I mean, is that something that's, as we get out of here, I mean, is that something that visiting teams deal with every week? I mean, I don't have the pulse on it.
Yeah. And any Western New York fans that are listening are going to throw rocks at me, but because they get so mad about this, the way that the stadium and the canopy is engineered, the last thing on the field to leave the sun is the visitor sideline. And they did that on purpose. And it's usually around 3:15, 3:30 that the shade finally gets over there. So you spend not only the field where you're playing in the humid heat, but then you come over to the sideline and you have to sit unless you bring all that equipment over with the fans and the tents and all the stuff and put them over the benches. You sit in the sun too. And it is definitely something, it's been a big part of the reason why Miami has had the home field successes that they have had, particularly in the Mike McDaniel era, where they've been able to score points and kind of force you to strain late in games, and it has taken over. So it is definitely an X factor to watch for these two teams.
Alex is great. Kyle is great. Check them out over at Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Dolphins, respectively, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Detroit Lions are looking like prime NFC contenders. The Tennessee Titans, not so much over in the AFC. Both those teams face off this weekend. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Tyler Rowland, Locked On Titans. Take it through what could be a very lopsided matchup.
Matt and Tyler with you on a Thursday crossover, Titans and Lions. All right, Tyler, you go first here. What are some keys for the Titans? How do they steal one at Ford Field?
Well, I said it at the top of the show. The reality for the Titans is this is going to be a very difficult game to win no matter what. But if they're going to do it, they're going to need to run the ball. They're going to need to force turnovers, and they're going to need something special. You know, like that's what it takes. They're going to need a little bit of Mo City magic, I'll call it. Like, they got to stop the run like I talked about before, because if you let Jared Goff get third and manageables, it's going to be too easy for those guys over the middle of the field to get 4 or 5 yards. So you got to get them in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, and hope that you can stop them there. And that all starts with stopping this run game. If they do that, then they got to force turnovers. That they got to win the turnover battle by 2 or 3 to have a chance to win this game, because it's not just about stopping the Lions offense. It's about putting your offense in a position to get some easy points. And then again, they're going to need a little bit of magic on the offensive side of the ball, in my opinion. They're going to need a crazy play to break their way. They're going to need somebody to have them. They're going to need Calvin Ridley to finally go nuts and haul in a deep pass past the safeties. They're just going to need something that they don't get week to week, and that's somebody to step up and be a great player. The Titans have kind of, when they've been good, they've just kind of done, it's been tight end screens. It's been a quick, 8 to 10 over the middle, but they haven't had any deep explosive plays in the passing game for quite some time now. So they're just going to need somebody to step up and make a play. So run the ball, get the Lions in 3rd and long, create some turnovers, and hope for a little bit of magic on a couple of plays on offense where the football just breaks your way and something happens. I mean, that's all they can hope for here. But the odds are this is just a total mismatch in terms of talent on a roster and the setup of a team and the culture and being on the road in Detroit. Just nothing favors the Titans in this one. So they're going to need a little bit of magic to be able to win this.
You mentioned Calvin Ridley before. A quick follow-up. Is he in a better mood lately?
I mean, I don't know how he would be going back through the film of Mason Rudolph. There are so many times. Everybody's mad at Calvin Ridley. He's dropped a couple passes. I mean, you look at the best wide receivers in the league, you're going to see their names at the top of the list and drops too. Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. Like, those are the guys who have dropped the football the most over the last 5 years. So you can make up for that with great plays, but he's been open so much. A top 5 player in the NFL at creating separation this season, and he just doesn't get the football a lot of the time. So I know it's been ugly for him, but I can't take aim at Calvin Ridley. He's open and he ain't getting the ball.
Interesting for the Lions, just to transition here, some keys is not to take this team lightly. I don't think they will. Under Dan Campbell, this team is all business. Right. They are 1 week at a time. But again, the look ahead to next week, 4:25, Fox in that primetime window at Green Bay and Lambeau Field, I think is a huge game for this football team. And they've had success at Lambeau the last couple of years. And, you sandwich this game between at Minnesota and at Green Bay. It just, like you said, it's a letdown. It's a trap, and the Lions can't allow that to happen. They've got to play good football, take care of the football. Last thing you want to be doing is giving Rudolph and that Titan offense, which isn't great, like you said, but just a short field. Right. No gifts this week. Just play your game, do your thing, run the football, and be smart about it. I think that is going to be a big key for the Lions. Blocking Jeffrey Simmons, I'm a big fan. Obviously, the Lions. Interior offensive line has done some very good things, but this is a guy that's a game wrecker. And I think that would be a key for the Lions anytime. And also kind of, again, the edge rushing situation, finding out what you have, and also finding out maybe about another receiver with Jamison Williams out. Who steps up? Maybe now with J-Mo gone, maybe the Titans figure, all right, let's just take 14 away and try not to have Amon-Ra beat him. Who's going to step up and make some plays. But I think guys will. Tim Patrick, who came over from Denver, has done a really nice job and has made some nice plays. So that's how I look at it. I prediction wise, of course, we're both going to take the Lions in this game.
Yeah.
Tyler, I just wonder, though, if this is one of those slobber knocker, 27-20 games where you go, man, I thought the Lions were going to blow them out. Or
we could see it go the same. Like, the Lions, human nature, they could be looking ahead a little bit, knowing that they don't got to be a steak in this game. If they're a cheeseburger, they're still going to win, but the Titans could, make it close early. And then at the end of the game, the talent deficit just goes in the Lions' favor. So I think it could be a little closer than Lions fans want. One thing I do want to caution Lions fans before we go, do not think that your edge rush issues have improved if you do well against the Titans. The Titans' right tackle position is an absolute disaster right now. The coach even called it a big problem in the media. So whether it's Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, Leroy Watson, they sign Isaiah Prince, who used to play right tackle for the Bengals during their Super Bowl run where they had a miserable offensive line. Just, you're probably going to have a good week in the pass rush, Lions fans. It's fool's gold. You still need to make a move. So I just want Lions fans to keep that in their mind as we go into this game.
Matt has it covered with Lions news. Check him out over at Locked On Lions. Tyler, the same thing with the Titans. Check him out over at Locked On Titans, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next up on the docket, we have an AFC South battle between the Indianapolis Colts and Houston Texans. Both those teams looking for a big win. You have John Hickman of Locked On Texans, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts have key storylines, big matchups, and a lot more coming your way.
And also, I do want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is great. You guys can go over their PrizePicks right now. Look at Anthony Richardson, more or less than 40.5 rushing yards in this game. Anthony Richardson with a passing total not really being there lately. He's been leaning on the ground game a little bit. So again, Crossover Thursday is brought to you by PrizePicks, and that's a great thing to look at right there. Anthony Richardson, more or less than 40.5 rushing yards. Prime opportunity, especially as John mentioned in the last segment. I mean, if they're down linebackers in this game, Richardson might be able to run the ball a little bit more. Again, with the passing offense kind of struggling right now for the Colts. But John,
can I say something to that?
Yeah, jump on in.
Guys, especially Texans fans, please take the less on Anthony Richardson's passing yards, because
yes, that might be
ain't happening. Well, I don't know what it is right now. It could be 90 yards. Take the less.
Whoa, it's only one deep ball to Alec Pierce. Tell Jimmy Ward to get back out there this weekend, and we'll get back to the deep ball over Jimmy Ward.
Oh man, I love these crossovers. I love these in-division crossovers, man. It's so fun.
Oh yeah. Look, we got to get Jimmy Ward healthy out there. You know, that way we can get some deep passes out there in this game. Jimmy Ward's missed the last couple games, right?
He's been out. Yeah. Injuries have really so this team on all three levels of the game, they haven't been fully healthy, right? Yeah. I mean, we look at week 1 was probably one of our healthier games. Week 2, Joe Mixon goes out, and this offense did not look the same without Joe Mixon. The game Joe Mixon comes back, he runs for over 100 yards, 3 TDs, they score 41 points. Joe Mixon, the 2 games that he's, debuted in for game 1 and coming back were the highest scoring games for the Houston Texans so far. Yeah. So he makes a hell of a lot of difference. Jimmy Ward being out there forces guys that may be good football players. Like, I've become a fan of Eric Murray, and that's crazy because I used to talk about Eric Murray all the time, but the fact is he should be playing within a role. And when he's out there more than what he's supposed to be, bad things happen.
Yeah.
So we got to get guys healthy.
Definitely. And we're going to talk about what our teams need to do to win this game. 3 things for each of our teams here. And I always sound like a coach when I talk about my things the Colts need to do, because it always feels like such like high school coach thing where it's like, don't turn the ball over, be efficient on offense and win in the trenches. But honestly, that's what this comes down to for the Colts. I mean, look, the coaches kind of got that thing going. When it comes to the offense, Anthony Richardson, we need some efficiency. It doesn't need to be a 70% passing, day or whatever. It doesn't need to be this day where you're throwing the ball like Drew Brees out there, but it can't be a 40% passing day. It can't be 9 of your 13 drives being 3 and outs. It cannot be that to beat the Houston Texans. You can beat the Miami Dolphins that way. Perfectly fine, especially with whoever. There's Tim Boyle starting at quarterback, but you can't beat the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud that way by going 3 and out on every other drive. You have to supplement it with the run game or supplement it with the short passing game. There needs to be some efficiency in the Colts offense. When it comes to the defense, they got to win in the trenches in this game. Like you mentioned, John, the Texans offensive line has struggled lately. The Colts are coming to this game with like the most healthy defensive line they've had all year. Leatu Latu is healthy. Dio Dangbo is healthy. DeForest Buckner could be back. Kwity Paye is healthy. These are guys that can fire off the ball, attack. Grover Stewart can take advantage of some of those issues up there as well with his strength. Like, this is a game you really have to win the trenches. And then at the end of the day, win the turnover battle, baby. Like, that is, I know we all talk about it. It's the most important thing for every team, but when you're going against a better team like the Houston Texans, who have this really good young quarterback in CJ Stroud, and you're, again, kind of the underdog, you can't turn the ball over. You have to take advantage of the couple that you can get, or if you can get a couple. And if you turn the ball over and give Stroud short field, you're not going to win the football game. So it's as simple as that. Don't turn the ball over on offense and then take the ball away on defense. Very simplistic things there, but something the Colts need to do to win this game.
My number one, and I'm going to go through 3, but my number one key to victory, give CJ time to throw the ball.
Right.
I have no doubt this team will be able to run over the Colts. Everybody has been able to run over the Colts. I mean, that has been a thing. You could be averaging 60 yards on the ground, but if you play the Colts this year, they're going to allow you to rush for over 100.
Except for that Bears game. Hey, we did good against the Bears. So
what was the Bears total?
I think DeAndre Swift had like 4 yards rushing on like 15 carries. It was great. It was terrible. But besides that, you're making a perfectly valid point there, John.
It's a thing. But for the Texans offense, it really does come down to getting the totality of what this offense can look like. And I've been very critical of this offense and play calling because I feel like even with Nico Collins going down, who is still top 5 of receiving yards after missing 2 games, you got Stephon Diggs, you got Tank Dell, you have Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie. You're using some of these receivers more as blockers than you're using them to run routes. That's incredibly insane. But the fact remains is, hey, listen, block, give CJ time, and spread that offense out. Allow him to pick his poison. But it all starts up front. So I agree. Very high schoolish. It starts in the trenches. And getting DeForest Buckner back for you guys, I think is big for the Colts. But that's also a big challenge for the Texans front 5. Give them time, protect well, handle what you're supposed to do, communicate, do your job, and give CJ time in the pocket. Number 2, run the ball. Don't make it hard. Don't overthink it. It's 2nd and 6, run the ball. 3rd and 1, run the ball. Run the ball. The opportunities will be there. But I also think when you're playing a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, do your job. And I say that because for you edge guys, you cannot lose outside containment. He'll take advantage of that. For our banged up secondary, the opportunities will come for you to create those turnovers. And I'm not even being funny at this point. He'll give you turnovers. Be where you're supposed to be. Stick to your assignment. Win the turnover battle, which is something that I think the Houston Texans have done fairly well this year. Give your offense a shorter field to work with and do your job. So those are my 3 things. It all starts up with the offensive line. Set the tone early. Punch them in the mouth before they punch you in the mouth.
Yeah.
Give CJ that time, and we may see a phenomenal day.
Yeah, and one thing I will say before we get out of here, I know we've been joking back and forth with the T.Y. Hilton comments and how you got to bet the Colts in this one, but I love this matchup. I love these 2 teams. They're really fun teams to watch on Sundays, even if the Colts have to win ugly at times because they're young quarterback. 2 really well-coached teams, 2 second-year head coaches that have been doing great jobs with their franchises.
Right.
This game last year, like, again, not in this time of the year, but the last game of the season last year was for a playoff spot. And right now they're facing each other again for the division lead halfway through this year. These are 2 teams that have been at each other's throats the last couple seasons. And I think it'll be a tight game. I mean, outside of week 2 last year, these have been 1-score games, like a lot recently, even with the disparaging quarterback play, with CJ Stroud being really
Texans
good.
Have not swept the Colts since 2016.
There you go. So
that should be nearly 10 years later. They should sweep the Colts this year. But
and again,
guys,
it'll be exciting. And again, guys, the house that T.Y. Hilton built, you can't lose in the house that T.Y. Hilton built. Like maybe just bring him back for a 1-day contract. We'll have some fun with it.
The last time he built the brick in that house, AARP was probably getting a call from him that very next day.
Yeah.
He's old. That's old news, Texas fan. Listen, let's talk, man. They better not lose this game Sunday. I'm gonna just say that.
It'll be a good game. It'll be a good game, everybody. The Colts get the Texans at a good time again. Nico Collins, struggling offensive line. If you're serious about making the playoffs, Colts, this is the one you got to win. I'm not saying the Texans are this awful team or anything. Texans are a very good team, but you got to take advantage of these opportunities and make a name for yourself. You can't just keep beating the Dolphins every week and then expecting to make the playoffs. So this is a big game for both these teams. The Texans can give themselves some space too with the division.
I think on the flip side of that, if the Texans are as serious as we believe that they are, this is one of those games where you got to put this team down.
Yep.
Right. A lot of 1-score games for the Houston Texans this year. Colts, Chicago. The only blowout win that they've had has been against the New England Patriots. They've struggled offensively in a lot of these games. Defensively, they've been amazing through 7 games. So for Houston, listen, put this team away. Have that offensive explosion. That they're going to play you tight. They're going to play you tough. They're going to play you close. But this should be a game where you create separation from yourself and the second-best team in the division right now, which is one of the weaker divisions in the NFL. The Colts are going to get ahead of steam. It seems like that's going to happen. It's history. Put them away early.
Big AFC South bout there. For more on it, check Zach out over at Locked On Colts and John over at Locked On Texans, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Last of the 1 p.m. slate, The Green Bay Packers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Green Bay with Jordan Love and Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. So Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers, Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars. Get you ready for Sunday.
All right, continuing here with the crossover. Today's crossover is always sponsored by PrizePicks. Here on Thursday, head on over to PrizePicks, enter the promo code Locked On NFL, and you will receive $50. Is that it, Peter Bukowski?
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to you, because it sounds good to me. All right, look, we got to make some predictions here. I don't have the Jaguars winning this game. I just think Green Bay is too good in every area.
Can I bring up the T word?
Go ahead. What?
Trap game. That is the word on the minds of Packer fans right now, because you get this big win over Houston. Like, you saw it. Jair, Stephon Diggs, those dudes do not like each other. There's the pregame scuffle. They talk the entire game. There was a little bit of a playoff chippiness in the way that we watched the Packers play last week. They've got Detroit next week, then a bye, then the Bears, then the 49ers. This is the meat of their schedule coming up. If you're going to come out and no-show because you overlook an opponent, this would be the week. I don't believe in trap games generally. I think it's nonsense. I think championship teams take care of business, and I think the Packers are a potential championship caliber team, but this game scares a lot of Packer fans right now, Tony. I'm just telling you.
I can understand that, and I can understand why you're afraid, because the Jaguars Trevor Lawrence is better than people think he is. Okay,
yeah. Trevor Lawrence numbers. For sure.
Trevor, we have two running backs, Travis Etienne, who's banged up. I don't even know if he's going to go, but Tank Bigsby
might be better.
Power runner who could, he might be better in a lot of people's eyes. Evan Ingram's back and he's healthy. Christian Kirk can play. Gabe Davis can play. They got a lot of people. I just believe, though, with the pressure you guys can put on the defense, I trust your defense coordinator, our offensive coordinator. And then when you flip it around the other way, our defense has a tendency. I don't know what Ryan Nielsen's doing, and I want you to notice this Sunday. They rotate people after like 2 or 3 plays on like the first drive of the game. So if Green Bay can get one first down, you're going to see Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen on the sideline. And it is the most bewildering thing in my mind, because I know they're not running Kenny Clark to the sideline after 2 or 3 plays on the first drive. And then if y'all make it to the red zone, he's going to insert them and go make them, okay, now stop them. Don't let them score. It's the weirdest thing. But we're banged up in the secondary, man, and you guys have gotten pretty healthy, especially with Watson coming back at wide receiver and Reed seeming like he's okay. I just think they have too many weapons, and I think the offensive game plan for Green Bay is just too good, and then you can always turn and give the ball to number 8, Josh Jacobs. So, and Tucker Kraft. I was a huge Luke Musgrave fan. Tucker Kraft has turned out to be the dude I thought Luke Musgrave was going to be. So I know I'm supposed to be talking about the Jaguars, but I'm just telling you why I think this team is too good for them. I think we could surprise Minnesota. I don't think we can surprise and upset Green Bay.
So it's funny because Luke Musgrave just can't get on the field is part of the problem. He just can't stay healthy.
That's another example of what I'm talking about. He's not a bad player. He's athletic and all of that, but that other kid is just too good.
Just better. It is well, and that's why you double up. That's why in that draft they drafted 2 kids, top 100 picks at tight end, a need position. They bring in Ben Sims, undrafted free agent in that draft, and now Tucker Kraft has ascended. Luke Musgrave's hurt. Doesn't matter. You've got this really good player, leads the NFL in yards after contact. Tucker Kraft. This is true. 9 yards after contact per touch. That is crazy. That's if you try and tackle him, he's going to pick up a first down after you try and tackle him. Like, he is a nightmare to tackle. And I think this is on both sides of the ball where the game is going to be won and lost. The Jaguars are number 1 in Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 quarterback in EPA throwing to the middle of the field. The Packers defense is 3rd in DVOA defending the middle of the field. They are really good at taking away the one place that this offense has been really good this season. And if you want to throw the ball deep down the field, good luck. Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams are the 2 highest graded safeties in the NFL in coverage this season. It's going to be a tall task to try and do that. On the other side of the ball, these linebackers are a problem. There's a reason this is the worst defense in the NFL by DVOA. And by a couple other metrics, I think that middle of the field defense, Jordan Love, he loves to throw those slants, in breakers, deep, the digs back in behind. They love to run these dagger concepts where you've got the big in breaker with the clear out route. I think that's going to be where they can take advantage. The middle of the field is going to be where this game is won for Green Bay. and lost for Jacksonville. I said it in The Leap, a newsletter I would love for your fans to go subscribe to and check out this week. That a focused Packers team comes in and scores 30 and wins this game by a touchdown or more. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think this team is locked in that kind of way. And so I like, this is one of those games where I think like 31-21 is kind of where I feel like this is going to go. Don't turn the ball over if you're Jordan Love. And I think that it's just too much right now for these two teams. So that's what
I got you. Here's what I think Packer fans are going. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, and I believe y'all will leave saying they're better than 2 wins. But I'm going to tell you the difference between the organizations.
Okay.
How much did y'all pay for Xavier McKinney?
Well,
let me rephrase that. How much was his contract?
$17 million a year, I think, is the number.
Well, that's a lot. So it's probably a little bit more, but I guarantee you, whatever that number is, y'all probably laughed at the fact that we gave Darnell Savage all the money that we were giving him to play slot. And you know, to be honest, he's been a little bit underwhelming for us.
Well, and think about this, Tony. The Jaguars gave Gabe Davis $13 million a year. Would you rather have Gabe Davis at $13 million or Xavier McKinney at $17 million? I mean,
I'd rather have Xavier McKinney.
It's a no-brainer.
See, all of it's no-brainers. And that's the point. When you look at the Jaguars, you say, why aren't they better? And when people talk about that point you made up about the money, it's not just the pressure. What it is you're paying guys to be something that they're incapable of being. Yeah. So when let's just say everything
the contract, if the answer is
right,
no,
everything is slotted. So you're paying Gabe Davis $13 million. Well, Gabe Davis ain't a $13 million wide receiver, but the expectation is that he will be. And the problem is he's not. So now if a guy tries to overperform the contract, that's where he's not able to do it. And that's the part of the pressure. And I'm glad that you brought that up. It's not like the pressure of just playing a sport that they've been playing since they were kids. It's the pressure of you paid me to be something that I'm not. You can't pay Robin to be Batman. You can't pay either one of them to be Superman. It just doesn't work. And I think that's the problem with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They haven't drafted well enough, so they have to go out and overpay and spend big money in free agency, and it just has not panned out.
Check Peter out over at Locked On Packers. Check Tony out over on Locked On Jaguars, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for the 1 p.m. slate, but don't go anywhere here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show. We have a bunch of great 4 p.m. slate matchups we're going to take you through, so be sure to stay tuned and plenty to get to on the Ultimate NFL pregame show. First, this show is sponsored by Pre-Alcohol by Zbiotics. Pre-Alcohol probiotic drink by Zbiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-Alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Zbiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Here's how to use it. Step 1, drink Pre-Alcohol. For best results, make Pre-Alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. Zbiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Who will come out victorious between the Buffalo Bills and the Seattle Seahawks? I'm Kevin Ostreicher. This is the Ultimate NFL pregame show, bringing you everything you need to know leading up to Sunday's action. There are so many good 425 games, 405 games on the docket for Week 8. We're going to start with the Buffalo Bills and Seattle Seahawks. You got Joe Marino of Locked On Bills and Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks taking it through a battle between Josh Allen and Geno Smith, Sean McDermott, and Mike McDonald. Plenty of storylines and matchups to look into.
Welcome back to Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Glad to be teaming up with Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, as we gear up for Sunday's game between two playoff hopefuls at Lumen Field. Joe, let's get to our keys to victory, the most important thing that both teams must accomplish to win on Sunday. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills, who have been playing pretty darn good football. They now have their season at 5 victories. Where do you see this team needing to succeed? What are the keys to victory to go into Seattle and give the Seahawks a third straight loss at Lumen Field.
Yeah, that'd be crazy, right? I have 3 things written down that I think are most important for the Bills on Sunday afternoon. Number 1 for me is that the Bills need to help their run defense. The best part of the Bills defense is probably their cornerbacks. Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson's an all-pro slot corner, and then Christian Benford is an emerging star at the position, and they're outstanding. And the Bills structurally play defense a little bit differently than everyone else, where they will give you light boxes over and over and over again. And every once in a while, the Bills have these games where teams just run the ball all over them, and it's a problem. And again, they put a lot of stress on their front to be able to fit the run with only 6 and maybe sometimes 7, but never 8, right? You're never going to get a heavy box look for this Bills defense. And so since they're never willing to be +1 in the box, they can get creased from time to time. Well, who's good at taking advantage of creases? Ken Walker, right? So there's a lot of concern that I have in this game about the Bills' ability to contain a big play back like Ken Walker. And so if there ever was a week to roll down a safety or help your run defense with some run blitzes or some gap exchanges or some stunts, you got to be able to do that because Ken Walker will run all over you if you don't. Number 2, I think the protection schemes offensively are going to be critical. This is a Seahawks defense that doesn't blitz much, but they get a ton of pressure. And the reason they do is because Mike McDonald is the master of the simulated pressure, right? The illusion of pressure and then being able to rush 4, but not necessarily the 4 that you expect. It's a very, very good, trendy way to play defense in the NFL, and Mike McDonald is very much a catalyst for this. And I think one of the areas where the Bills offense has had some issues is with pass protection, and not pass protection through the lens of offensive linemen getting beat one-on-one, right? That doesn't happen that often for the Bills. Their protection schemes get them in trouble where sometimes they don't know when to keep extra bodies in. They'll give you a 5-man protection and just tell Josh Allen to kind of figure it out with the free runners. They can be confused, and there's some communication breakdowns from time to time. And I think Mike McDonald's the type of defensive mind that can stress your communication with your protection scheme. And so the Bills need to be ready to handle that, especially on the road in a very loud environment in Seattle, which gets me to number 3 is to be ready for a hostile environment. I know that maybe the Seahawks haven't had the same success at home that they typically enjoy, but it's still a tough place to go play football. It's loud, and not that the Bills offense in particular isn't equipped to playing in loud environments. They play in Kansas City all the time, and it's not uncommon, but they went into Baltimore, and I thought that hostile environment didn't really lend itself well for the Bills to be sound offensively. And for as experienced as Josh Allen is in these big games and loud environments, like we mentioned, there's a lot of new around Josh Allen with the receiver core. And so I think that you better be ready for, I'm sure they're pumping the speakers in practice, and they got all their silent counts all figured out, but you can have great intentions, but when it comes down to it, being able to perform to your capacity in a situation like that is going to be stressed in Seattle. So for me, it's, you got to help your run defense somehow. You got to have your protection schemes shored up against a creative front. And then of course you got a tough assignment here in the Pacific Northwest in a loud environment like Lumen Field.
And I think this is Josh Allen's first time playing at Lumen Field. So it's always interesting to see how star quarterbacks handle that the first time that they play there, because it's still very loud. I'm not taking anything away from the fans as far as what the record shows. They still bring it every home game for the Seahawks. Yeah. But I'm going to piggyback off the pass protection stuff from your end, because when I look at this Seahawks defense, as I mentioned, to me, the strength of this unit is that front line and their ability to generate pressure, and then mixing in blitzes with Devin Witherspoon. The sim pressures where you drop one of your defensive linemen back and let Witherspoon come after the quarterback. They've got a lot of different moving parts they can use. Both their linebackers are capable of creating pressure on the quarterback as well. If there is a game where Mike McDonald really needs to open up that sim pressure playbook, this is the one that I would start to do that. Because to be honest with you, Joe, there have been several games this year where I've gone back and watched the tape, and you could count on under one hand the number of sim pressures that they had. There's not been something they've done a lot. And I think some of it's been because their edge rushers in particular have been so darn effective getting after the quarterback. They haven't had to do that as much. But I think in this game, you've got to give Josh Allen some different looks. He hasn't thrown an interception this year. Historically, though, he's had issues with that. Can you find a way to coax a turnover or two with some confusing looks, mixing in some of those pressures? And then when you do get pressure on him, you cannot let him get outside of the pocket consistently. He's going to do it occasionally, but
This is a game where Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Draymond Jones, you've got to be guarded with your pass rush and make sure that you're not giving Josh Allen those big lanes to run at the pocket or get outside. You have to limit the extended plays somehow. That is going to be a huge key for them. And on offense, you mentioned Ken Walker III. I'm feeding him early and often, both in the running game and the passing game. I think that he opens up their passing game when they get him involved a little bit as a receiver. But I mostly want to get that run game going because, look, this Seahawks offense is on a different level when they are able to run under center play action because of the receivers they have, even without DK Metcalf. Geno Smith is so proficient in that game, and it feels like last week that Ryan Grubb finally got the hint. I need to do this more. We got to get the run game going, get some of that under center action so that we are able to open up our passing game. I think in this game, it's going to be crucial for them not only to run the ball, but also be able to get it. I'm going to say this right now. I want to see 10 play action plays minimum this game. Let Geno Smith feed off the run game and get some of those opportunities downfield. I think that's where the shot plays could come into play at some point against this Bills defense. If you can run the ball effectively and get some of that play action, I think if they can do that on their home field, they've got a good chance to get the victory here. Speaking of that, let's get to the spread. The Bills are coming into this game, Joe, as a 3-point favorite on the road. They do have the better record. It's understandable. But looking at that spread going into this game, what are your vibes as far as whether or not the Bills can cover that coming into a hostile environment against the Seahawks team that now is feeling a lot better than they did a week ago?
I was surprised when I saw that the Bills were 3-point favorites in this game. The Bills obviously have the capacity to beat any team, and I think they should go in with expectations of being able to win. I just feel like there are some matchup challenges that exist with Seattle if they do choose to stay committed to the run game, and then what that does open up for their down the field passing. The Bills are typically very good at eliminating explosives down the field. But obviously when you can run the ball like that and you maybe do force some of those safeties to cheat up, you do have a good vertical passer in Geno Smith with good vertical receivers. And so I think there are some things here that give me pause, but obviously the Bills have a good offense with Josh Allen and are very potent themselves. And so, if we have a track meet here, who gets on top of it, I think there's going to be points. I think that's right. What I come away thinking is that this will be a high scoring game with, I think, matchup problems on both sides. But for the Bills to be 3-point road favorites, honestly, my reaction to that is I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I actually think that this is a game that I would have near even. I think these two teams right now, especially with a few of the injuries that both teams have had, I feel like this is a very even matchup on paper. Different strengths, obviously, but I think the Seahawks are going to cover that 3-point underdog spread. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I could see this being a game where Buffalo kicks a field goal in the final seconds to win by 2 or something, because I just have a feeling this is going to be one of those. I'm with you. I think it's a high-scoring affair that I think is back and forth and really comes down to who's got the ball last. There might be a 2-point conversion thrown in there as well that messes with that spread. But I think that this is going to be a very close game. This is one that I had circled before the season. And honestly, adding Amari Cooper to the mix now just puts more intrigue here. The Seahawks are hoping to have Riq Woolen back to be able to defend him along with Devin Witherspoon. So this has a chance to be an absolute barn burner. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I think you got the right vibe, Corbin. I think this is going to be a tight football game. There's going to be a decisive play or two at the end, and the 12s and Bills Mafia will be white knuckles the entire time. I'm sure of it.
And I've seen plenty of Bills Mafia out here in Seattle. I was driving in downtown on Monday and got to see a few of the Bills clubs that are in the city. So they're already ready to go for Sunday. This should be a fun one.
Be sure to check out Joe over at Locked On Bills and Corbin over on Locked On Seahawks, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next up, the defending champs travel to Las Vegas for an AFC West matchup, the Chiefs and the Raiders. Chris Clark of Locked On Chiefs, your boy Q of Locked On Raiders, get you ready for the bout at 4 o'clock.
Chiefs Raiders is always going to be a good matchup when we start talking in the trenches, but I think that you had another matchup in mind before we talk about the trenches. So what do you have on your mind?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by Brock Bowers, who's been a stud rookie for the Raiders, tight end. He's really a wide receiver in a tight end's body, and anyone in Kansas City knows all about that. They've got one that's pretty good named Travis Kelce, right? Well, Brock Bowers is fantastic. He's been everything that he's been cracked up to be, and then some, right? And he's the leading weapon for the Raiders, especially since they traded Devontae Adams. I just want to see how he does against a Steve Spagnuolo-led defense, because Spags has done a fantastic job. Every time Antonio Pierce talks about him, he gives him nothing but praise. Obviously, he's very familiar with them from his time with the New York Giants, but I want to see how he slows him down. I don't know if Jacoby Myers is going to be available this week. He hasn't been available the last 2 weeks with an ankle injury. He's the best wide receiver that the Raiders have since Devontae is gone, and Brock Bowers is the best weapon that they have. So he's going to be a guy who's going to be out there. I know that every defensive coordinator is going to look for 89 and say, okay, how can we slow him down? So I'm interested to see how the Chiefs will defend him and try to slow him down, because, again, he's a guy that's getting 10 catches a game. He's a guy who's getting a lot of yards after the catch. He's a guy that just finds a way to get open. I mean, he was a shock and a surprise when he was there available at number 13 overall in this past April's draft. Tom Telesco said, we got him because we need to get touchdowns. Didn't score enough touchdowns a season ago. He's going to be a guy that's going to help us move the chains, get us down to the red area, and get into the end zone. And he's done just that. I mean, he's only had 1 touchdown on the season, but I mean, just the production he's had from his position has been fantastic. And I know Spags is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, and I know he's going to have a little something coming for him. I just want to see what it looks like. And again, he's a rookie, so we'll see, how he's able to, to play the chess game, right? If Spags comes at him one way, okay, how can he adjust what he's doing and still find a way to get open and make himself available for Gardner Minshew? That's going to be a huge matchup that I look at. Matter of fact, I'm not too sure how they're going to defend him. Do you have any idea of who or what kind of defense they might try to employ against Brock Bowers?
I will say this, that's actually probably the matchup that probably scares me the most when it comes to the Raiders, because when you go back and you watch Kansas City season, Isaiah Likely had a huge game week 1. It wasn't a specific Bengal tight ends week 2, but multiple tight ends had big catches in that game. And then we'll skip Atlanta because they don't use Kyle Pitts right, and they never have. I've never understood that.
Yeah.
So skip Atlanta. But then you get into week 4 and they play the Chargers and, a little bit of tight end. But really you get back into week 7, I guess it would, game 6 for the Chiefs. And they go up against, George Kittle, and George Kittle goes off for 92 yards. He didn't score 92 yards isn't a ton, but it's still, they're bad against tight ends. And I do think that that's a huge problem for this defense. When you start looking at it, though, the thing that really I think that they're taking advantage of is that they've found ways to stop the run. And if you can stop the run and make a team try to pass against you, their pass defense is really good. They struggle against tight ends, but their pass defense against wide receivers is very good. And they've struggled against some running backs. So I'm curious to see how Spags really tries to deploy against this matchup in Bowers. I think that he's probably going to try safety. Maybe he's going to try a linebacker or two. Probably going to switch things up on with multiple different snaps. But the big question I have is, how are they going to handle and how are they going to get after Gardner Minshew? Because if he's turning the ball over, Brock Bowers may have a big day. I mean, he could go for 120, 130 yards, but is that really going to matter in the grand scheme of things if Minshew's turning the ball over 3 or 4, 2 or 3 times even? Because you give the Chiefs an extra possession or two. While they haven't been great, they've been grinding teams down with their run game, and I think that that's something that they're going to continue to take advantage of.
Yeah, no, Minshew can't turn the ball over. I mean, this is a game that he cannot turn the ball over. Like, there has to be a big goose egg in the turnovers for the Raiders. They, and I hate to say that they have to play a complete, clean game to win this game, but they literally have to play a complete, clean game to win this game. They're just not good enough. They don't have enough freelance ability to be able to make a few mistakes and say, "Oh, no problem, we'll get them. We'll get that one back." Right? I mean, and you mentioned the run defense of the Chiefs and the way that they've been doing, how they've been slowing teams down from being able to run the ball. The Raiders struggle to run the ball anyway. Right. I mean, they did pretty well last week. They went over 100 yards last week, but that was against the Rams, who were the worst in the league in stopping the run. They also did really well running the ball against the Cleveland Browns. Shocking. They're also not very good at stopping the run. But everyone else, they haven't done good at all. And Antonio Pierce wants to run the ball. So you're going to see Alexander Madison. You're going to see Zamir White. You're going to see, Amir Abdullah. But I don't know how good they're going to be. And that kind of goes back to what you said about the trenches, right? The offensive line has been makeshift all season long. They've had guys in and out of the lineup due to injury. They've got a couple rookies there. And their left guard, Jackson Powers-Johnson, a second-round pick out of Oregon. They also have DJ Glaze, a third-round pick out of Maryland at the right tackle position. So that's a couple rookies. They're still trying to find their way in the NFL. It's been tough sledding literally on the ground, man, for the Raiders. So If the Chiefs aren't allowing anyone to run, then all of a sudden you make the Raiders one-dimensional. When they're one-dimensional and Minshew has to throw the ball 35 or 40 times, that's when you start to see turnovers happen. So that's not a good recipe for the Silver and Black. They've got to find a way to establish the run. They've got to find a way to run the rock. I don't care if it's a tight end, or I don't care if you're handing the ball off to a wide receiver. I don't care how you do it. They've got to do it somehow, some way. And if they don't, then they're one-dimensional, and that's always trouble for Gardner Minshew.
Well, the bigger in another part of that is when you start throwing the ball, if you're not completing them, you're not taking time off the clock. You're not bleeding the clock. Time of possession becomes a big issue. So no, I absolutely agree. I think that's going to be big. And you have to think Chris Jones is really looking forward to this matchup just because interior offensive linemen, rookies going up against rookies, going up against players like that. He's going to enjoy that. That's going to be a big thing in this game. And I'm not trying to throw shade at the wide receivers, but the reality is if Bowers, even if Bowers can get you 120, 130 yards, if they're able to stop the run, the rest of the offense, at least from what I've seen from the Raiders to this point, I don't think they're going to get it done because I think you're right. I think Minshew is going to turn it over 2 or 3 times because he's going to have to throw 40 times. That's not a position you want the Raiders to be in.
No, it's not. And that's why Jacoby Myers coming back is so big. If he's able to come back, that at least gives him a reliable wide receiver 1. He was a wide receiver 1 in New England, right? I mean, and they haven't been worth the salt since he left, but he was wide receiver number 2 when the Raiders had Devontae. Now all of a sudden, no Devontae, so Jacoby Myers goes up to number 1, but he hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been available the last couple of weeks with the ankle injury. So we'll see. He practiced in a limited capacity on Wednesday. We'll see by Friday if he's a lot better and closer to going. He's huge. He is a huge piece because, again, outside of Brock Bowers, if no Jacoby Myers, you have Trey Tucker, and he's got speed, but I don't think he scares anyone. He's not established in the league like that. DJ Turner, he's got speed, but I know he doesn't scare anyone. He's not established in the league. You got Christian Wilkerson, who's been around the league for a long time. I know he doesn't scare anyone. I mean, my point is there's not a lot of weapons that you look at and say, oh, don't let that guy beat you. So, again, it goes back to 89. It goes back to Brock Bowers. That is the one guy that you don't want to beat you. And like you said, even if he does go off for 100 yards, 120 yards, whatever, like if no one else does anything, you're probably going to win that game. So there's a lot going on in this game for the Raiders. I've been calling it evaluation season just because I think everyone has to prove why they have a job and what their role on this team is moving forward. And so this is a big test for everyone, right? Offensively, defensively, the coaches as well. They've got to step their game up this week against a very tough Kansas City Chiefs team that's never lost in Allegiant Stadium. Think about that. Never lost in Allegiant.
I love it. I understand why you hate it. I understand why you hate it. I get it. The one thing I will say, and I don't know what they're going to do about Brock Bowers just because he is such a I don't want to call him a unicorn, but he's very rare in what he can do and how he can do it. So how they're going to attack that is going to be interesting. But I will tell you, if Jacoby Myers plays, I'm not going to be shocked if Steve Spagnuolo doesn't come out and say, okay, Trent McDuffie, go take him out. And I don't mean take him out physically. I mean, just go eliminate him. And if he does that, then you're in a situation where you've got a bunch of other guys that, as you said, aren't going to scare people, and you can kind of scheme around how you're going to defend them. But Brock Bowers is obviously going to be the big one. When I flip it over, though, and I start looking at Kansas City, I will say this is a game that I kind of had circled because I was really kind of terrified of your 2 guys up front. I mean, Crosby, I never like playing against. And don't get me wrong, I love him as a player. He's fantastic. Right. If I could take any player in the NFL outside of the Chiefs and put him on the Chiefs, it'd probably be Crosby. I just think that he's a fantastic defensive end. But you add, your piece in the middle, and I know he's out for this game, but that was such a big piece for you guys. And so I was looking forward to seeing how, because you look at the Chiefs and they're built in the interior. So seeing those guys go up against, Christian Wilkins and that scenario, I'm sad that it's not going to happen, but
yeah, no, I am too. He was a big piece. He really was. And he was starting to show what his worth was, when he got injured. Unfortunately, he opens things up for Max. He's a great player. Obviously, he opens things up for everyone on the defensive line. And now without him there, you could see, where they're hurt. And really, honestly, even before he went out, they were struggling to stop the run. They still have been struggling to stop the run. And the Chiefs have shown that they can run the ball, right? They do have a an ability to run the ball if that's how they want to butter their bread. And so the Raiders are going to have to do that as well. I mean, again, the trenches are going to be so critical to this game, whether it's, the offensive line of the Raiders trying to slow down Chris Jones on the interior, or the Raiders defensive line trying to slow down the run game and try to obviously put pressure on Patrick Mahomes as well, clog up the middle so he can't step up into the pocket, make him do some other things, which, oh, by the way, he can do. So I think that the trenches are just going to be so critical in this game. Somehow, some way, when we were talking about it on Monday, it's going to be like, yeah, this game was won or lost in the trenches by one of these two teams.
Yeah, and I think in past years, Kansas City would not want to win they would want to win it, but they wouldn't want to run it as much as I think that they're going to maybe in this game. They've been running the heck out of Kareem Hunt the past couple of weeks. I think that they're going to continue to do that. They ran for like 170 yards this past week, and I think that Kareem didn't have all of them. They've got a couple of different running backs, so I do think that that's going to play into it. Hopkins, we'll see if he plays. I've heard that they want to get him involved in this game. Obviously, coming in on basically because he didn't practice on Wednesday. So if he comes in on Thursday and getting 2 days of practice in, I don't think that he's going to know a ton, but maybe he can get in there for a couple of plays. So we'll see how that goes. But Kansas City being able to run the ball the way they have, I think, is really going to change how this game could come out and how it plays. How do you see it? And I don't necessarily need a prediction, but how do you feel about this game at the very end of the day?
I have a hard time believing that the Raiders are going to win this game because I have a hard time believing that they're going to play a clean game, right? And that's what it boils down to. I mean, it really does. If they've been getting 8, 9, 10 penalties, even at the week when they only had 4 penalties, they were critical, right? They stopped a interception that they came up with. They got off the field on 3rd and long and a personal foul penalty, put them back on the field. It was just dumb mistakes at the worst time. So I struggle to believe that they're going to play a really clean game and they're not going to have those penalties. They're not going to have those turnovers. So I think that Kansas City is going to win this game. I really do. I hate to say that. I would love to see the Raiders win it. But, of course, this will be the game in a rivalry game where you throw all that out the window, all the struggles that they may have had, and just say, hey, this team's going to go try to punch this team in the mouth, and this team's going to try to punch them back, and may the best team win. I mean, it just feels like that's how it's going to end up playing out, even though, like I said, the clean game's got to be had by the Silver and Black if they want to have a chance in this one.
Yeah, I personally, I'm with you. I think the Chiefs are probably going to win this game. We'll get into more predictions on Friday with Ryan. But I will say this, I'm not going to mind if they find a way to lose at Arrowhead again in the future, because the last time that happened, look what happened, and the Chiefs are chasing a three-peat right now. So I'd feel pretty good about that if Kansas City even dropped a game at Arrowhead later. Seeing as how they're 6-0 right now, I think they have a really good shot at the number 1 seed. I know it's still early, but a lot of football to play.
Chris is great. Q is great. Check them out over at Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next up, the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. You got 2 rookie quarterbacks, although one of them right now, Jaden Daniels, dealing with a bit of an injury. So you have David Harrison of Locked On Commanders, Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears. Could be a sneaky good matchup coming up here between these two teams.
This week's Crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Bears and Locked On Commanders is brought to you by PrizePicks. And now Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears host, and myself, David Harrison of Locked On Commanders, are going to tell you the 3 things that each team must do in order to get a win in Week 8 in Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. Lauren, the away team gets to call the coin toss, so I'm going to let you call your 3 things first.
Yeah, sure. So I think first and foremost, if I look specifically to this Washington game, it's having a plan for the up tempo and the no huddle. Like, the Bears have definitely been a team that prides itself on conditioning and working their guys hard through training camp in the preseason so that they don't run out of gas by the fourth quarter of games. It's like they can outlast teams to the fourth quarter, but up tempo is a great way to really test that. And I don't think other teams have really tested the Bears in that regard. And sometimes that defensive line can get tired, and they've tried some different rotations in that group up front. So I think the Bears need to have a concrete plan there and to be able to stay a step ahead, and not only just, get off the field on 3rd downs so the Commanders can't get these, up-tempo drives going where they get into a rhythm and march their way down the field, but also, find ways to stop the clock by getting ball carriers out of bounds, or, if you can force an incomplete pass so they can't hurry up to the line of scrimmage and get the next play going, so that you can be ready on your substitutions when the clock does stop. Because that's the other aspect of this is, okay, you stop the clock. Now what? Do you have a platoon for the defensive line? How are you going to rotate guys in and out of there so that you're getting a consistent pass rush? And then, how they mix in, blitzes and other things like that to try and disrupt that rhythm of the Commanders offense is really going to be critical, because we talked a little bit this week about how The Bears had kind of gotten a little predictable blitzing. It was usually the slot cornerback, usually on second and long, and usually out of single deep coverages. Last week against the Jaguars, they switched that up quite a bit and went more two deep coverages, blitzed on different downs, different places. So if they can stay one step ahead of the Commanders there, that's also going to be I sort of meshed in a second key to victory there is mixing up the pass rush to disrupt the offense, staying ahead of the up tempo. And then I think offensively for the Bears, right, it's about keeping things easy for Caleb Williams. When he struggled early this season, it's because they couldn't run the ball and they weren't on the same page with receivers. And so he had to do a lot. He had to throw the ball 50 plus times against the Indianapolis Colts, and they still lost in that game. But if they can keep the running game going, they've made good progress in that regard. If they can, let the checkdowns make plays after the catch. He doesn't have to throw the bombs all the time and make things happen everywhere for the offense. Just take what the defense gives you. Trust that your defense is going to give you an extra opportunity or two with a turnover at some point in this game, and let everything sort of come to Caleb. That's been really the formula for the Bears' success.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'll tell you, on the Commander side of things, I think, the three things you got to do is contain Caleb, maximize turnover-worthy plays, and then, of course, because we have to get something on the offensive side of the ball, run the ball. I don't care who the quarterback is. This needs to be a Brian Robinson-heavy game if you're the Washington Commanders, and it actually goes right into one of the things you're talking about. So I'm going to start there real quick. Run the ball, keep the clock running, shorten the game, and put more pressure on that Chicago Bears offense to produce on a drive-in, drive-out basis. The Washington Commanders have been really good about producing points on not every drive, right? They did have that really long run earlier in the season where they were producing points or at least scoring opportunities on every drive, but they are still scoring at a very, very impressive clip. They still did it against, again, Carolina Panthers defense got it, but they still did that even with Marcus Mariota in the game last week. Now that he's going to have a full week, and just to be clear, Jaden Daniels not playing is not a for sure thing, but right now we're kind of operating under that belief. That's that, at least most of us here in Washington are operating under that belief. So that's why the conversation is slanted that way. But even if Jaden comes out there and plays, clearly he's still going to have a little bit of a rib owie going on. So you don't want to get him hit as much as possible. And the Chicago Bears, like we just talked about, they're getting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Their sack percentage compared to dropbacks that they're facing is really high. Their interception percentage is really solid. The best way to keep a defense from intercepting passes and sacking quarterbacks, give the ball to the running backs. So you got three really good ones. Brian Robinson Jr., I think, is nationally underrated and maybe even criminally underrated. Austin Eckler is a very capable veteran. And then Jeremy McNichols has had his moments as well this season and proven that he can be a reliable third running back in the pecking order. I want those three backs, Lauren, this weekend. I don't care who the quarterback is, to combine for 25 or more carries. Then we can talk about Austin Eckler's receptions and maybe B-Rob on a check down or two and all those things. But I want 25 carries. And if you can manage to get a game flow going as the Washington Commanders offense to where you can justify 25 or more combined carries for those three backs, I think you're going to put yourself in a very good situation. Like I said, you're going to shrink the game. And then defensively, maximize on turnover-worthy plays and contain Caleb Williams in the pocket. Caleb Williams is not the runner Jaden Daniels is. I think you don't have to be a draft expert to understand that, but he can certainly still do damage with his legs, whether it's extending plays or getting rushing yards himself. So you want to contain him in there a lot like they did with Kyler Murray, a lot like they tried to do with Lamar Jackson and had success here and there while they were trying to do that and get that pressure. The games where Caleb Williams is doing the best so far this season are just so happen to, not coincidentally, be the games he has the longest average time to throw, which means he's taking his time when he has it available to him. Don't let him have that time. Put pressure on him early. Even if you don't get in on him, make him throw a ball before he wants to throw that pass. Turn that into a turnover-worthy play, of which Caleb has had 3 turnover-worthy plays in one game. He's had at least 1 turnover-worthy play in every single game but one. Lauren, the Washington Commanders defense hasn't done a great job of maximizing on turnover-worthy plays, but they did it last week against Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers, getting 1 pick six and then another interception later. Convert that 1 or more turnover-worthy play that Caleb has been throwing right now per game into a takeaway. Extend your own drives. Take away one of Caleb Williams' drives. To me, that's a recipe to getting a win.
I think you're spot on there about Caleb Williams, where it's like, yeah, every game he'll give you one. He's not going to put the ball in. He's not reckless with the ball at all. Like, it's not a pattern of behavior where, he throws 3 balls that could be picked off, but only 1 does. It's just like every game, there's been like one kind of rookie mistake type of stinker where you're like, all right, we can live with that for a rookie quarterback in his rookie season. So you have to be able to take advantage of those. And with the Commanders running game too, like, the Bears defense has been a little bit more vulnerable on the ground than it has been through the air. And there's been a few games this year where they'll just randomly kind of give up a big, not a breakaway, like 60-yard kind of touchdown, but just like a couple of big gashing runs where I think the Commanders will have a drive or two in this game where it feels like, oh, they're in rhythm and everything's rolling, and they'll get a couple touchdowns on those drives, and you'll start to feel like, okay, there's a formula and a path here. It's just a matter of, can they do that for 4 quarters? And typically this Bears defense has been really good at, they'll give them a touchdown drive in the first half and then stand pretty darn strong the rest of it. They'll give them a touchdown drive in the second half and stand pretty darn strong for the rest of it. And then it's a matter of how much the Bears offense can then score to match what this defense allows. But I agree with you that like the under bet feels a little bit more likely here. I don't think this is going to become a full on like shootout in either direction, but I do find myself leaning towards, especially without Jaden Daniels, probably a Bears victory along the lines of where the spread is right now.
You can find Lauren over at Locked On Bears. You can find David over on Locked On Commanders, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. You have the New Orleans Saints, the Los Angeles Chargers, 2 teams that really need a win here. Really do. The Saints with Spencer Rattler and the Chargers with Justin Herbert. You have Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, David Drogemeyer of Locked On Chargers. Take you through the matchup here.
All right, everybody, it is time to break down this Los Angeles Chargers, New Orleans Saints game with what each team needs to do to get a win. We are proudly presented by our friends over at PrizePicks, as we are every crossover Thursday. Head over, download the PrizePicks app, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. David, let's start off with the home team here when it comes to the Chargers. What are the things that you feel they need to do to get a win in this game?
So yeah, 3 things that the Chargers absolutely must do if they want to win this football game, starting with the first is avoid the boneheaded mistakes. Then they have to get back to winning in the trenches, and the tackling and the angles have to be better. So avoiding the boneheaded mistakes is really stemming back from the Chargers' loss to the Arizona Cardinals. They fumbled inside the 5-yard line out after a big pass play to Jalen Reagor. He gets stripped. The ball goes into the end zone, and then they lose possession after a very, very promising drive. And then they get an interception by a big man. The defensive lineman, Tierre Tart, is able to get a kind of tip pass from Kyler Murray, and then is immediately stripped and then loses the ball and goes right back to the Arizona Cardinals. And then towards the end of the game, rookie cornerback Cam Hart, who has played exceptionally well, being thrust into duty, got a unnecessary roughness penalty on Marvin Harrison Jr. towards the end of that game that really put them in position to be able to glide down the field very effortlessly and score that game-winning field goal. And then get back to winning in the trenches. I talked about it earlier. The Chargers have been very boom or bust when running the ball, but it's also the run defense, which up to this point, at least up to the Arizona Cardinals game, the run defense has been very, very good. I mean, the overall, defense for the Chargers has been fantastic this year under Jesse Minter. But last week, they got bullied. They gave up 181 rushing yards and 6.2 yards per carry, and the Chargers can't allow that. They got to get back to dominating on both sides of the trenches. They have to stop the run, and they have to run the football at a much higher clip. They got to get J.K. Dobbins involved. He's got to get consistent carries, and they have to set themselves up in more manageable down and distance situations. And then the tackling and angles have to be much, much better. Especially when you're going up against Kyler Murray, a running quarterback. He's a guy that destroys angles. And if you don't have the right angle on him, then you get exposed. That's what happened to linebacker Junior Colson. Unfortunately, he was out there on the edge, and Kyler Murray was waving bye-bye, basically, while he was running past him en route to the end zone. So the Chargers have to tackle better, which, normally they swarm to the football, and it's never just one hat. It's multiple hats to the ball. They have to get back to that philosophy if they want to get back into the win column against the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I think some of those are pretty big for New Orleans as well. We talked about the importance of tackling earlier on. I think both these teams are looking at that over the defensive side. I think for me, the thing that it starts off with is the number one key is protecting Spencer Rattler, but disrupting Justin Herbert. Then I would probably look at the run game, getting the run game back going, and kind of playing keep away a little bit, especially with the sort of dedication to the run game that Los Angeles has. They would have the ability to control this game if they're able to start producing on the ground while also being committed to it. So you want to kind of keep the ball out of their hands in order to make sure that that's not happening. And then the other piece is going to be kind of not necessarily the stop contributing to the other team more than you contribute to yourself, right? It's like the self-inflicted wounds thing that you kind of described earlier. Saints have had their own kind of fair share of that. And I think in order for them to do that, most effectively, they need to reopen sort of the explosive area of their offense. If they can get back to that, then I think that it allows them to maybe be able to play with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more swagger, all that, especially with a rookie quarterback there. You want to build that confidence as best as you can. And you can build that confidence through the quick, easy passes. But the way that the Saints have gone, 32-yard pass to open up his very first NFL pass off of play action, 27-yard pass to a tight end last week. I believe it was Foster Moreau this past week, Juwan Johnson the week before that, both the tight ends getting involved off the play action, very first play of each of those games. So Saints have not been afraid to push with that. But a lot of that comes down and comes back to that very first thing about protecting Spencer Rattler, 33.3% completion percentage and a 42.1 passer rating when under pressure so far this season. Those are not great numbers. Now, obviously, being good against pressure is unsustainable. It's not a consistent enough thing for you to hang a hat on. So you got to keep them clean no matter what, right? You don't want a quarterback that only plays well under pressure because there's no guarantee that that's going to happen.
And it means they're constantly under pressure, which is not good.
Right, exactly. And so you want to make sure you're cleaning that up. So the Saints maybe getting a little bit of their health back on the offensive line can help them with that. But at the same time, you want to disrupt and get after Justin Herbert as much as you can, because he has struggled a bit under pressure so far this season as well. So do you have the ability to be able to kind of make things tough for him? 52.1% completion percentage, 62.1 passer rating there. Not the same as what we've seen with Spencer Rattler, but Spencer Rattler is also a rookie quarterback, so you would expect those numbers to be worse. So if you can get after Justin Herbert, keep Spencer Rattler clean, I think that ends up kind of moving the needle for you. Get Alvin Kamara and his. Oh, go ahead. You were going to add something.
I was just going to say, I mean, for Spencer Rattler and the offensive line, they're probably getting Chris Olave back, and obviously Chris Olave is a big downfield threat. And so if they are able to protect, then they can possibly get the ball in the waiting hands of Chris Olave and that offense.
Exactly right. So I'll jump to my third one, which was the explosive plays. Chris Olave has got to be a big part of that, right? I mean, the biggest days that he's had so far this season have been 86 yards, 87 yards, things like that. He hasn't had that century mark game yet. And of course, he missed the last couple effectively because he ended up having to leave the game 2 plays in 2 weeks ago with a concussion against the Bucks, and then missed the tight Thursday night turnaround to the Denver Broncos after that. So now you get him back, hopefully, right? That's the expectation at least. And then he has to be a big part of that. Maybe Marquez Valdez-Scantling is able to contribute to that as well. But you really want Chris Olave to be that guy, about half the percent of drops in his career, things like that. You really want Chris Olave to be that guy. And then getting the run game going on the offensive side, just look, nothing helps your quarterback than having a good defense and a good run game, just like we talked about with Greg Roman and just like we talked about with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. You definitely want that to get going. New offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints, Clint Kubiak. He loves to establish the run game first and then be able to build off of that. When the Saints have not been able to establish their run game, they have not been able to build anything elsewhere. They have no second punch so far this season. So they've got to be able to get that run game going to be able to support.
And I'm going to tell you right now, when Alvin Kamara is at his best, he is one of the most frustrating running backs in the league to have to tackle and to have to defend, because it looks like he's just walking literally at a nice brisk little the Olympic speed when they're doing their speed walking. And yet he's not. He's running extremely fast, but he allows that patience to set up blocks, which allows him to get those explosive plays, which is a nightmare for any defense, especially a Chargers defense that, has been very good, but has given up a couple of explosive plays. So they just have to try to control and bottle up Alvin Kamara, which is obviously much easier said than done.
The run game, the quarterback, the explosive plays, the pass rush, the tackling, it's all here in this matchup. The coaching, it's all here in this matchup, or at least the coaching under a magnifying glass for the New Orleans Saints. But still, it's all in this matchup. I cannot wait for this one, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. We'll see which one of these teams ends up coming out on top and maybe riding the ship a bit for the season. It's an important game for both teams. I wouldn't say must win, but certainly an important game for most of these teams.
Saints Chargers going to be an interesting one for sure. You can find Ross over at Locked On Saints. You can find David over at Locked On Chargers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have a Super Bowl rematch from now many years ago. The Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos. Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, Sayer Benninger of Locked On Broncos. Get you ready for Sunday.
Broncos country, Panthers fans, we are breaking down some keys to victory. We talked about it and teased it a little bit just a bit ago when we talked about taking care of the football, but there's some specific keys to victory for each team in this game here as we approach week 8. Once again, thanks so much, and shout out to all the everydayers out there that make Locked On Broncos, Locked On Panthers your first listen of the day every single day. We really appreciate you for doing so. And Julian, I'm looking forward to this game. You know, it's football season. We can't complain. I'm looking outside. The trees are all changing colors. It's a great time of year if you're a football fan. Let's talk about some keys to victory for the Panthers, because I know like Broncos fans have not been used to winning since Super Bowl 50. It's been rough times in Broncos country. Everybody's afraid, even of, you know, it doesn't matter if you're coming in 1-6. It doesn't matter if you're coming in as, you know, they play the Ravens next week. The Broncos country is on pins and needles waiting for this game. So maybe let's do a little fear mongering here for Broncos country. Tell them why the Panthers are going to win this game, or how they can win this game.
Yeah, I got a friend here in Charlotte who is a Broncos fan. He already said to our group chat this week, it's like, yeah, the Broncos are definitely going to find a way to lay an egg to the Panthers. And now with Bryce Young, where, yeah, I saw the line. It was like 7.5 a couple of days ago. It was 8.5 when I looked at it on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it was at 9.5. So it's like, okay, that had to have obviously been the Bryce Young factor. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm happy you said that about it's football season. And people need to be happy about it, because I get so many fans who are already asking me things that are like off-season February conversation. Like, can we just focus on the football? And focusing on the football on Sunday, like the first thing they got to do, they got to show and build confidence in Bryce Young early. You showed after 2 weeks, you being Dave Canales, that you did not believe in this guy. And in seeing the team's overall effort and energy when they just blew the doors off of the Raiders in that game. I know his final score 36-22. That game was over at the end of the third quarter, y'all. That was a bunch of garbage time that Las Vegas got after that. Like, Bryce just clearly did not have the belief in the team. They got to find a way to get him some quick throws early on, be able to take care of the football, not ask him to do too much throwing down the field, and actually instill some confidence in him. And look, in the first couple of weeks of the season, he was 31st in EPA in week 1 and week 2. And surprisingly, like week 1, that was not the worst. It was Deshaun Watson. Week 2, it was the worst, as he really struggled. Second thing got to do, they got to run the ball. That's really their bread and butter. I know Canales talked about all offseason. You want to be stubborn about running the football. That has not really been the case. Panthers are only 23rd in the NFL in rushing attempts per game, where Chuba Hubbard is leading the NFL among rushers with at least 50 attempts, and rushing success rate at 62.1. Like, this guy has been outstanding so far in the last year of his rookie deal. The Panthers, they average 123 yards rushing in the last 5 games of Andy Dalton. Only averaged 74 the first 2 games with Bryce Young. Big reason is because they were not able to convert third downs. They were 2 of 22 on third down with Bryce. They've been a little bit better with Andy. Only 38%. Still not great, but they got to find a way to rush the ball, have success early on, get Bryce in some third and short situations to where he can make some nice throws that aren't too far down the field, have some confidence that can really build towards kind of what we got to see from him in that second half against Green Bay a year ago. And the third thing is, like we talked about, this is not a great Broncos offense. They cannot stay on the field on third down. Their quarterback has made some mistakes, but he's still learning on the job. And look, I love Bo Nix. Love his story. Dude who grew up in Alabama. His dad played at Auburn, always dreamed of going to Auburn, came in there, won his first game. Things were up and down there. Then went to Oregon, turned it around, and became a first-round pick. Would have never thought that was going to be the case, even when he started out at Auburn back in 2019. So good for him to be in this spot. But y'all, Bo Nix is not there yet, and I don't know if he's ever going to be there. The Panthers cannot let a Bo Nix-led offense, much like a Marcus Mariota offense last week, have success against them and go up and down the field like we've seen. So that's really the thing. Don't get embarrassed defensively. Find a way to run the ball, take pressure off of Bryce, and show some confidence and build some confidence in him early in the game, and at least go out there and be respectable.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. Anytime anybody's playing the Broncos, you want to absolutely fluster Bo Nix as much as you possibly can. I hate to do this, Julian. This is going to be so corny. I'm going to start off my keys to victory. You're going to hate me for this. I'm going to say, number 1, the Broncos got to keep pounding the rock. They've gone 5 straight games with 100+ rushing. I know that's terrible. Don't.
No, hey.
You know what? Hey, you know. I had to do it. I had to.
Younghoe Koo in the tunnel leaving Bank of America Stadium a couple weeks ago. Younghoe Koo is the Falcons kicker, for those who don't know. He said, keep stanking. So I'd rather your pun of keep pounding than Younghoe Koo, a kicker, out here trolling the Panthers after getting a victory.
That is tough. That is tough. He deserves whatever's coming after that one. I'll say that. But yeah, you want to keep pounding the rock. Number one key to victory for the Broncos: 5 straight games with 100+ rushing yards, including, like I said, 225 yards against the New Orleans Saints. Number 2, they need to finish drives with touchdowns, not field goals. That has been a problem pretty much all year, as the Broncos have struggled in the red zone to the tune of, I mean, it's not been good. 52.4%, which has improved substantially in recent weeks, even, which is kind of crazy to think about. Number 3, they need to keep that pass rush heat turned up high. And I actually made these keys to victory before we found out about Bryce Young going into the lineup. I don't think that changes. I've already spoiled this for everybody that's listening for the entire season, Julian, that I'm going to have rush the quarterback on there as one of the keys to victory every week, because when you can get after the quarterback, like, I mean, it creates opportunities for your offense, right? That's exactly what you want to do out there. You mentioned that the Atlanta Falcons have 6 sacks on the season. The Broncos, I think, have at least 3 or 4 games where they've got 6 or more sacks in individual games. Like, they rush the passer extremely. I may be exaggerating just a little bit there, but they get after the quarterback really well. And they've done it consistent every week this season, even against Justin Herbert. When they're not getting off the field on 3rd downs, they were racking up at least 3 or 4 sacks in that game. So the Broncos need to make sure that they make Bryce Young's life miserable out there in the pass rush department.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, man. Like, the Panthers actually have been really good when it comes to pass blocking. I believe they're now 7th in PFF's pass blocking stat after being one of the worst in the NFL the last couple of years. And your first 2 keys, running the ball. Panthers are the worst run defense in the league. When it comes to red zone, the Panthers are 28th in the NFL, giving up a red zone touchdown 70% of the time. So, and they're also the worst as far as scoring percentage defense, the worst scoring defense. So scoring percentage is going to be like that. 55.8% of opponents' drives have ended up in a score. So for Carolina, if you're going to let them score half the time, let it be field goals, not touchdowns, which has been kind of struggles. It's very interesting to hear, like, Broncos have some weaknesses offensively. There are also weaknesses for the Panthers, vice versa, defensively. Which one's going to give on Sunday? So it should be an interesting game. I'm certainly far more excited now watching Bryce Young get another opportunity than I would have been watching Andy Dalton go out there and get another opportunity. And then Dalton, by the way, Canales did say that he's day-to-day the rest of the week to see if he can be the backup. So it's still possible we see Andy Dalton on Sunday. I find it interesting if he's going to be the backup. I mean, they don't have a 3rd quarterback that they could really go to. They would have to elevate Jack Plummer from the practice squad, who is a undrafted free agent rookie out of Louisville, and he didn't really inspire too much confidence in the preseason until the final game. But still, so they're kind of really hoping Andy can at least be that emergency guy who would actually still be active. But we'll see how it plays out. So I'm excited to see what Bryce can do. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully it gives me something to talk about. Some controversy here in Carolina, could use it, especially during a 1-6 season in which Vegas believes it's going to be a 1-7 season based off of the line. So fun things going on at Mile High on Sunday.
Yeah, like you said, in a lot of ways, it's the movable object against the stoppable force in so many different ways here with the Broncos offense against the Panthers defense.
Be sure to check out Julian over at Locked On Panthers, and you can find Sarah over at Locked On Broncos, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 4 o'clock window, those are all the games. But coming up, we're going to take you through the prime time matchups of Week 8. Couple of good ones on deck, so be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot coming up here on the Awesome NFL Pregame Show. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a bigger turn on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So to get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So for that Ravens and Browns game at 1 o'clock, Ravens open up on FanDuel is 9.5-point favorite. So if you like the road favorite in the Ravens, or you like the home underdog in the Browns, be sure to pick your side all this week over on FanDuel. Be sure to visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. I'm Kevin Ostreicher, still here with you. We've done the 1 o'clock games. We've done the 4 o'clock games. Now it's time for prime time. And starting us off is the Sunday night football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. This one should be an awesome game. You have Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys and Brian Peacock of Locked On 49ers getting you ready for game time.
So one more key matchup that and you hope the 49ers can just run the Cowboys off the field and special teams don't matter. But or maybe Aubrey's had some sleepless nights and he's got these murder pictures painted in his head, affecting his kicking. But you got one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in the league right now. Fantastic return man, been good on special teams coverage units as well. It's the number one, according to DVOA, special teams in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's the number 31 special teams for the San Francisco 49ers, who have let returns happen. Some weird stuff in the kicking game. Obviously, they're on their third kicker, and the kicking field goals hasn't even been the worst part of their special teams either. Yep. So, just last week it was just comical. The game ended on a Mitch Wisnowski, the punter, an onside kick attempt, and he almost completely missed the ball, and the ball is just spinning, and it went about 2 feet, and the entire team is just sitting there looking at this ball as the game is ending and they're losing, and it almost added some levity to that loss against the Kansas City Chiefs for the 49ers. So special teams has not been good. If this is a close game, obviously the third phases can be big, and that absolutely goes to the Cowboys here.
Yeah, the Cowboys have been awful on offense, awful on defense, but they got the best special teams unit in the league because they have a kicker that can kick. He can kick a 71-yard field goal. We've seen Mike McCarthy line up trying to have Brandon Aubrey kick a 70-yard field goal. He hit a 67-yard field goal back in week 1 with plenty of room to spare. But it's not just the field goal game that they're good at. They've kind of figured out this dynamic kickoff thing in terms of they're not kicking the ball back to the back of the end zone. Brandon Aubrey's done a really good job of bouncing the ball inside that landing zone, inside the 20-yard line, forcing teams to either down the ball, taking it at 20, or returning it. And the Cowboys coverage unit has been awesome. That is one area where I think the Cowboys might have an advantage. And then in the return game, I don't know. I'm sure nobody studies special teams on all 22. I get it. It's not that fun. But what the Cowboys have been doing in the return game is Kevontae Turpin, their main returner, takes the ball, and then they'll always have a looping returner on the other way. And Turpin will either toss it to him or he'll take it. It just freezes the entire kick return unit for a half second. And it's why he's leading the NFL in return yards this year.
I remember they lined up for that 71-yarder. What happened? Like somebody called a timeout or something, right?
Yeah, somebody told them, well, the wind started to change a little bit, and they were afraid of the Browns potentially trying to return it. Okay. But we've seen him in practice kick 71-yarders, and it's not a concern.
Are we looking at the under then of the 45.5 points with the picture we've painted here?
Okay. No, because the thing is the 49ers, even as banged up as they are on offense, I have a hard time not seeing them score 24, 27 points. And once you get into those kind of games, I do think there's some potential for the Cowboys to have a little bit of a backdoor cover. I think the over is going to hit pretty confidently.
Well, the Cowboys got to get more than 9. All right.
You would think they would this week. I mean, they kind of have to be better on offense than they were last week, right? They have to.
So we've kind of painted what those pictures might look like for a Cowboys or 49ers win, but what is the path? What does the Cowboys win look like?
Yeah, it's going to have to be their offense. And that's what was so disappointing about the Lions game. I think everybody going into that game knew the defense was going to struggle. We thought that the Cowboys offense needed to turn the game into a shootout. And their first 3 drives were field goal, red zone turnover, punt. If you do that against the 49ers, the game is going to be over, right? They need this offense to score 17 points in the first half of this game. Turn it into a shootout because you do have more weapons than the 49ers have right now. Make it a quarterback versus quarterback game because I do think there is a chance that the Cowboys could win that type of game. But if it's a game where Dallas is trying to play ball control and lean on the defense, they have no chance.
The 49ers have lost numerous games this year where they won time of possession too. So that path, even though I think that's the path Kyle Shanahan wants, he's going to want the under. He's going to want to carry the ball 40 times. I think there's going to be a run heavy scheme here, and they're going to force the Dallas Cowboys to make it prove they can stop that run. But the Niners haven't had a problem moving the ball down the field. It's when they get to the red zone, it's getting into the end zone. So that's a huge one for me, is the 49ers putting up 6s and potentially leaning on Brock Purdy with a young group of wide receivers to maybe use his legs around the red zone and take it in himself, or just, brute force, use that run game and hopefully be able to win the game on the ground. I think that's the way Kyle Shanahan would like to play this one, and then get some more guys healthy after the bye and have.
Do we think Jennings plays in this one?
Yeah, I thought the reports aren't good to start the week. I thought he might have had a chance this week, but it's really hard to tell right now. He's got to get in at least a limited practice. And then again, I don't know, pneumonia doesn't heal in a week, right?
No, so I talked to Kate Majuk on Locked On Dynasty, who used to be in the medical field. He said for even top tier athletes, it's going to take them 3 to 4 weeks to have like full lung capacity again. I think Debo will probably play, but I'm sure Kyle Shanahan and that medical staff is going to be monitoring and limiting his snaps throughout the game.
And then, yeah, like I said, don't let it come down to special teams, because that has not been the 49. Like, so this is what can't happen is you can't have, a Turpin return touchdown and then Brock Purdy not on the same page with his rookie wide receivers, because he's big on anticipation. And if you're in the wrong place, he's going to let it go early before you break sometimes. And that can lead to some ugly interceptions. And he wasn't great last week. And so if it is a shootout, then that does absolutely bode well for the Dallas Cowboys. You don't want it to come down to special teams, and you don't want it to come down to rookie wide receivers, even though I think they're both very talented guys. I think Kyle Shanahan would prefer to lean on the running game in this one.
And everybody loves Ricky Pearsall. I think he's going to be a good receiver. This is still a Sunday night football game against I don't want to call it that Cowboys a big time opponent, but it's a big time rivalry game, right? This is probably going to be one of the most watched games of the NFL season. And I think this is true for both teams. They have a lot of young players playing on both sides of the ball. Whichever one of those young players steps up and performs above expectations, that's probably going to be the team that ends up winning.
It doesn't matter who's out there. It's 49ers Cowboys. It's prime time, Sunday night football. The crowd is going to be going crazy. Marcus, you and I could be out there on the field, and the fans are going to be hyped for it. And so I'm going to be hyped for it as well. I can't wait for this one. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Be sure to check out Marcus over at Locked On Cowboys and Brian over at Locked On 49ers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rounding out the action, Monday Night Football, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. Both teams could really use a win. You got Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants, taking it through everything you need to know for this game, keys to victory, key storylines, and so much more.
Back here on Crossover Thursday, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants. Patricia, let's talk about these young guns at wide receivers. Now, George Pickens a lot less young as far as how things go out. He's actually 23. He'll be 24 by the end of the regular season here. Malik Neighbors just turned 21 not too long ago, but still, these are young guys that have been very impressive. And a lot of people have talked about what Malik Neighbors has been able to do with the Giants. He already has 3 receiving touchdowns on the year. When I look at those 5 deep ball completions that Daniel Jones has, 3 of them are Malik Neighbors this season. What has he done that's impressed you the most? And what is the big thing that you think the Steelers need to be aware of when facing off against his big playmaker ability?
Yeah, I think the fact that he has come in as advertised, deep play threat, very mature for a 21-year-old, very competitive, wants every ball. I think sometimes he's a little too competitive for his own good because, he's not afraid to try to outmuscle a defender for the ball. And sometimes, you got to, depending on how the angle is and whatnot, sometimes you just got to say, let it go, live to see another down. But look, this kid has made such a difference because now he's starting to draw the bracket coverage, which should theoretically open things up for the other guys. And, if the quarterback can get the ball to them, then great. Malik Neighbors will have done his job without, necessarily doing his job, which is to catch the ball. But he has just been so good for this team. And, they missed him probably more so against the Bengals, which was a loss at home, than they did against Seattle. Seattle, they were able to get by, without him. But he does make a difference in the game. He's become Daniel Jones's favorite target with good reason. And, these other receivers and just, without somebody to draw double coverage, now it's like, okay, they can be neutralized pretty easily. So, if you want to stop Malik Neighbors, you've got to get physical with him. No receiver likes to get bumped off the line of scrimmage, within that first few yards where it's allowed. Knock him off his timing, his route, and just, basically put your fastest guy on him because he can run, he can cut, he can just, I call him a cloud of dust. That's not his official nickname, by the way, like the others I gave you, but he's a cloud of dust. He really is. You blink and boom, he's gone. I don't know. I'll have to ask him if he's got a nickname besides Leak. Right now, they just call him Leak, whenever he catches a ball at the stadium. But yeah, he has been something else. And I'm glad they got him.
I think he's certainly been an impressive playmaker. I haven't been able to study him in depth, but when I watch the highlights, I'm like, oh man, that guy's popping off the screen like he did in college. When I look at the contested catch numbers, that's something that I always look at for big name receivers. How well do you come down with the ball in traffic? He's caught five contested catches on 13 contested catch targets, according to Pro Football Focus. George Pickens caught 6 of 17 of those balls, so very similar rates there as far as going up and get it. And that's what George Pickens is known for, is being able to go up and get the football in this game. If George Pickens is going up against somebody, Patricia, who is that person? Is it Jason Pinnock? Is it someone else? Who is going to be the person that probably is tasked with taking him out of the game?
So Pickens would be their number one receiver, right?
Absolutely.
Probably Deonte Banks. And Deonte Banks has traveled with the opposing number one receiver, I want to say, at least 5 out of the last 7 games.
Okay.
So I think it'll probably be Deonte Banks. Now, there's an asterisk to that. That's if Deonte Banks doesn't get benched. And I say that because for Pittsburgh fans who aren't aware, Deonte Banks has been inconsistent, shall we say, with his effort. And it's been blatant to the point where his coaches are starting to get on him. So against the Eagles, there were a couple of plays where he just basically just stood there and he's like, oh, okay, I'm just checking out the view. And the coaches didn't like that. So I wonder if Brian Daboll isn't going to sit Deonte Banks, not for the whole game. I don't think he would sit him for the whole game, but will he sit him maybe for a series or a quarter? That remains to be seen, because obviously calling him out in public, as they did a few weeks ago, didn't do anything. The message didn't get across. And I think it's time to take the next step in showing this young man that you got to give maximum effort every single play. So we'll see how that plays out. But to answer your question, Banks would probably be the guy that covers George Pickens.
It's interesting there, because that's something that's come as a criticism for George Pickens. Even recently this year against the Colts and Cowboys, he was questioning his effort on his route running, because it was obvious he wasn't running his hardest routes. Now I think that's changed in the last game or two. But looking at how the Steelers have been playing, I think that they're looking that would be certainly very interesting to see those two match up. On the flip side, Joey Porter Jr. has been the Steelers' top cornerback, and it looks like Dante Jackson is actually going to miss this game with a shoulder injury. So the Steelers are might be shorthanded at corner. I fully anticipate if there's one guy the Steelers assigned to, it's Joey Porter Jr., who as I went over in our last show on Wednesday with Mike DeFabo of The Athletic, we both thought Joey Porter Jr. has quietly been a very good cornerback in the NFL this year. He's not given up big plays. He's gotten an interception while covering CeeDee Lamb. He's been able to run with number ones, not exclusively. The Steelers haven't given him that duty yet in this defense, but I think he's very physical. So if you're looking for guys to jam him and get off the line, Malik Neighbors, that's the kind of corner that Joey Porter loves to be. How have you seen him deal with that? Like, Malik Neighbors obviously getting separation, but how have you seen him deal with the physical corners that don't give him the space to run right away?
Well, he'll fight you. He'll fight you tooth and nail. He's very, very competitive, which is one of the reasons why head coach Brian Daboll kind of fell in love with him at the Combine. We saw this unravel, by the way, on Hard Knocks. He absolutely fell in love with the guy and just was thrilled with the answers that Malik Neighbors gave him. And they weren't just words. He has shown that he's competitive, that he wants to win, that he hates to lose. He wants the ball, so he has come as advertised, as I said. So, but yeah, if you start, infringing on his territory, he will fight you. He doesn't back down to anyone. And it doesn't matter if you're a first-year player or if you're a 10-year veteran. He believes he has a right to that ball. And if you want to try and stop him, good luck.
I hear you there. I like feisty receivers. I like guys that fight like that. I think him and Joey Porter Jr. could be appointment television Monday Night Football, as it should be.
Chris is great. Patricia is great. Check both of them out. Chris over at Locked On Steelers and Patricia over at Locked On Giants, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all I have for you here today on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, Week 8 edition. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to catch us when we are back here next week. We have a great slate of games in Week 9 to dive into. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Enjoy football. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you right back here soon on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show.